Chapter 217. Yang Feng looked at the rain trees, and the corners of his mouth rose into a smile. The problems of water and food have been solved. The bread tree seeds Yang Feng took out were also improved extraordinary plants. Bread trees planted on an acre of land could be harvested 3 times a year, with 4,000 kilograms of bread flour harvested from the bread trees each season. On the Feisua plain, the wheat yield of an acre of land could be harvested twice a year, with the yield of each harvest being only about 200 kilograms per mu. If there were natural or man-made disasters, then the yield would be even lower. Yang Feng took out a vial of elixir and downed it, then closed his eyes, operated a secret method, clenched a top-notch magic stone in both hands, and absorbed the magic energy inside. After a while, he recovered his spirit and physical strength. The resilience and endurance of bloodline warlocks with black dragon blood meridians were far superior to those of the same rank. The only weakness that wasn't a weakness was that the evolution potential was too small. If one didn't take the path of faith and ascended to godhood, then after reaching the Starry Sky warlock rank, there would be no way forward. Yang Feng opened his eyes, his figure shook slightly, and he disappeared. In a blacksmith shop of the Miracle City, dozens of blacksmiths were forging all kinds of ironware in full swing. Blacksmiths were the most popular type of people among slaves, especially in the Beastman Empire, which lacked ironware. Every year, a large number of blacksmith slaves were smuggled from the human kingdoms due to the lack of ironware. The human empire repeatedly issued orders and formulated many cruel and strict laws, yet they still couldn't stop the powerful slave merchants from turning many blacksmiths into slaves and smuggling them into the Beastman Empire. The dozens of blacksmiths were gifts to Yang Feng by the slave merchant leaders in order to curry favor with him. "Esteemed master, may I ask what brings you here?" A burly middle-aged man with a shaved head and a wheat-colored body that looked like it was plated with a layer of oil walked towards Yang Feng and asked. Yang Feng handed a piece of divine blood steel to the burly middle-aged man. "Bando, can you process this ore?" Bando was the leader of the dozens of blacksmith slaves as well as the most outstanding blacksmith in forging weapons. Bando took the divine blood steel, only to feel the weight in his hand. He squeezed it slightly, and his face revealed a trace of graveness and joy. "Good steel. This should be a legendary magic metal. I'm not confident, but I can give it a try." After that, Bando put the piece of sacred blood steel directly into the stove and burned it crazily. In the burning flames, the divine blood steel gave off a bright light and showed no signs of melting. With the passage of time, Bando's eyes gradually dimmed. Finally, he took out the red pincers from the furnace. Looking at the still dazzling divine blood steel, he smiled bitterly and said, "Sir, this is definitely an extremely powerful magic metal that we can't process at all. I'm afraid that only the legendary dwarven craftsmen can refine this kind of magical metal." On the Feisua plain, there were also dwarves. Dwarves' smithing skills were unparalleled in the world. On the Feisua plain, many legend-rank weapons were forged by dwarves, and even a few semi-divine armaments were forged by dwarves. According to the legends, the dwarves had even dabbled in the domain of the gods and created divine artifacts. However, there was no clear proof. On the Feisua plain, dwarves were a weak race, and the god of dwarves Paladin was a neutral god. They wouldn't easily get involved in the wars between powerful divine systems. Yang Feng flicked his finger, and a knowledge crystal flew into Bando's hand. "This is the knowledge crystal of the smithing skill I've mastered. Crush it, and then try again." Bando crushed the knowledge crystal, and suddenly, a large amount of smithing knowledge poured into his mind, making his eyes flash with ecstasy. Bando opened his eyes and gave Yang Feng a grateful look, and then said with a bitter smile, "Master, thank you for your generosity in bestowing me with this knowledge. However, after all, I'm just an ordinary human blacksmith. Without tools, I can't process this magic metal." Yang Feng smiled faintly and waved his hand, and a set of secret treasure-rank stove, bellows, hammers, iron blocks, and other secret treasures required for smithing appeared in the room. Bando looked at the set of secret treasure-rank forging secret treasures and said in a trembling voice, "Are these the legendary smithing and enchantment items?" Yang Feng said, "That's right, give it a try now." The knowledge just now should contain knowledge on how to use these tools. Bando thought carefully for a while, and then tried out the secret treasures one by one. His movements changed from rusty to proficient. The enchantment items used magic stones as their power source. Even though Bando was just an ordinary person, but he could still use these secret treasures. After Bando skillfully started using the secret treasures, he picked up the piece of divine blood steel with a pair of tongs and put it into the stove. A white flame gushed out of the stove and fell on the piece of divine blood steel. The divine blood steel, which previously showed no signs of melting no matter how it was burned, finally began to turn red. Bando was overjoyed. He took out the piece of divine blood steel, put it on the iron block, raised the enchantment hammer, and mercilessly hammered it. Along with the sound of the hammer, the piece of divine blood steel finally began to deform. Under Bando's hammering, it transformed into a sword. Yang Feng smiled faintly, turned around, and left the smithy. Even though Bando had the knowledge Yang Feng gave him and used the power of the secret treasures, he could at most forge the piece of divine blood steel into the strongest and sharpest sword. If he wanted to enchant it with magic and turn it into a magic sword, he would still need Yang Feng's help. However, Bando could use divine blood steel to forge weapons and armor, as well as provide a batch of sharp weapons and sturdy armor for Yang Feng's troops to use. Yang Feng had a lot of things to do, so he naturally couldn't stay in a smithy and forge weapons. 3 months later, a huge merchant group of nearly 8,000 people appeared in the Red Earth wasteland and slowly moved towards the miracle city established by Yang Feng. In this huge merchant group, there were 3,000 guards and 5,000 human slaves. This huge merchant group was a joint merchant group formed by the slave merchants in the Rijek city. Although the Red Earth wasteland was extremely barren and lacked water and food, but it was a transportation hub at the border of the 4 empires. However, it was a transportation hub at the border of the 4 great empires. In order to obtain greater profits, some human merchants would often take the risk to pass through here and head towards the 4 great empires. If the human merchants didn't become rich overnight, then they would become the feces of goblins, bugbears, ogres, and other bandits in the Red Earth wasteland. Although the Red Earth wasteland was extremely barren, but there were still some places where shrubs grew. There were still some edible and extremely sour berries in the shrubs. In addition, there were also some places that were less contaminated by divine blood. Although they were very unpalatable, but could barely fill one's stomach, wild vegetables and potatoes could be planted. There were as many as 8,000 people in the joint caravan. In the Red Earth wasteland, no force could contend against such a terrifying force. When bandits saw this huge merchant group, they could only reveal covetous gazes, not daring to make a move. A city. Heavens, are my eyes playing tricks on me? There's actually a city there. A city, it's only been 4 months, yet he was able to build such a city here. Incredible. He actually succeeded. Only 4 months. When the merchants saw the city in the Luoxia plain, their eyes filled with shock and they commented spiritedly. Amazing, as expected of a great wizard. Jim, one of the leaders of the merchant group, was also shocked by the majestic miracle city. According to the construction strength of the Feisua plain, without tens of thousands of people spending a year or 2, it was absolutely impossible to build such a majestic city. With several thousand slaves, it only took Yang Feng 4 months to build such a huge city, of which 1 month was spent on the road. Such a construction speed was simply a miracle on the Feisua plain. Suddenly, a merchant's eyes widened and he cried out, "Trees! Heavens, great god of slave hunters! What do I see? A tree, oh, no, it's a forest." A forest actually appeared in the Red Earth wasteland. Is this a miracle of a true god? Trees! That's a forest! Heavens, there's a forest here! Trees! That's a forest! The merchants were dumbfounded as they stared at the forest and cried out involuntarily. Some merchants rubbed their eyes in disbelief, and then stared at the purification trees that appeared in front of the miracle city. They were dumbstruck, and it took them a lot of effort to accept this fact. Jim's eyes widened and he cried out, "Trees! Are these real trees? Heavens, who the hell is Master Ian? How could he plant trees in the Red Earth wasteland? That's something that many legend heroes haven't done. For ordinary people, it was almost impossible to build a city in the Red Earth wasteland. However, on the Fesua Plain, many legend heroes have tried to build a city in the Red Earth wasteland and succeeded. But without exception, they couldn't sustain it and could only leave the Red Earth wasteland. If the two most important factors, water and food, couldn't be resolved, it was impossible to maintain a city in the Red Earth wasteland. Even if there were mountains of gold and silver, they would be spent on water and food. Establishing a city was not profitable, and it was even more impossible to develop and grow. But now, a forest had appeared outside the Miracle City. This meant that at least this part of the Red Earth wasteland was no longer a plant-forbidden zone, and it was possible to grow food and other crops. This was of great significance to the conquest of the Red Earth wasteland. Chapter 218. Under the stimulation of the green trees, the incomparably huge merchant group immediately sped up their pace and rushed towards the forest. During this time, the Red Earth wasteland stretched as far as the eye could see. The green woods, as if an oasis had appeared in people's minds, nourished their minds and gave their taut nerves a trace of moisture. It was already lunchtime. Wisps of smoke rose from the green woods. The slaves working in the woods began to gather together to have their meals. Heavens, white bread! These lowly slaves are eating white bread and potato soup. Damn it, these lowly slaves, how can they eat white bread? Aren't they eating better than me, Lord Bai? Is there any justice in this? White bread! What a waste! It's such a waste to give these slaves white bread. Master Ian, it's such a waste. When the leaders of the slave caravans broke into the woods, they were attracted by the fragrance and went to the place where the slaves were having their meals. When they saw the slaves eating white bread, the eyes of many leaders of the slave caravans turned bloodshot and they screamed bitterly. On the Fesua Plain, the staple food of the middle and lower class commoners and slaves was the extremely coarse, hard as wood, and needed to be soaked in water to be able to be eaten. As for the fragrant, soft white bread made from finely ground flour, only wealthy merchants and aristocrats could afford to eat it. Some abject aristocrats even had to yield to reality and eat black bread with their families. There were a lot of misers among the leaders of slave caravans. Some leaders of small caravans ate black bread every day. Now that they saw Yang Feng's slaves gnawing on white bread, their eyes at once became bloodshot. When the guards of the slave caravans saw the slaves eating white bread, their eyes couldn't help but turn bloodshot as well. The guards of the slave caravans basically ate black bread and drank water. Now that the slaves were eating better than them, it naturally made them feel very unbalanced. Jim stared at the white bread, then looked at the Miracle City in the distance, and his eyes flickered with endless greed. Master Ian is so rich, even the slaves can eat white bread. What if I take people and seize the city? I have 3,000 people in my hands, and he only has a few hundred slaves. Even if it's a battle of attrition, I can use up all of his spell slots. Seize this city and offer it to His Majesty the Emperor. Who knows, Jim might be able to become a noble lord. Basically, none of the Rijek slave traders were good people. When they were in Rijek City, they could barely be considered law-abiding. But once they left Rijek City and came to the unrestrained wilderness, they became the most terrifying vicious beasts. Every year, many small slave caravans would disappear into the wilderness without a trace. For Jim to have such great power in Rijek City, it was unknown how many small slave caravans he had swallowed up. Jim, keep your men quiet. Clive walked out of the forest with 400 fully armed warriors. He frowned slightly and berated Jim. Jim looked at the awe-inspiring, spirited, and powerful Clive. His gaze fell on Clive's fingers, and his pupils constricted. The redness in his eyes faded, and he smiled amiably. Clive, I'm so happy to see you. It seems that your body has been completely healed by Master Ian. Master Ian, you're really amazing. That's right. 200 of my brothers and I have recovered our full strength under Master Ian's treatment. Not long ago, a group of more than 2,000 wolf riders came to ambush us. In the end, Great Wizard Ian single-handedly killed 1,000 wolf riders. If they hadn't run away fast enough, I'm afraid that all the wolf riders would have died here. Their corpses are hanging over there. Do you want to take a look? Clive operated a secret method, and a terrifying Sky Knight rank chi erupted in an instant. The powerful aura oppressed Jim to the point that he couldn't breathe. He looked at Jim with a smile that wasn't a smile. Clive knew better than anyone what kind of people those slave traders were. If you were stronger than the slave traders, and offered them enough benefits, then you would be able to do it. Then, they would be your most loyal dogs. But once you showed a trace of weakness, they would turn into a pack of jackals and pounce on you. Jim's pupils shrank slightly. He showed a gratified smile and said shamelessly, "Ah! Amazing! Master Ian is really amazing. Clive, you have to thank me. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have met such a good person like Master Ian. Moreover, I didn't mistreat you and your brothers when you were with me." Clive and the 200 soldiers of the Amon Principality were valuable goods. Jim naturally didn't mistreat them. If they were raised to look haggard, sallow, and emaciated, those noble ladies wouldn't like it. Clive said with a faint smile, "I really should thank you for that. But now, take your men into the city." Jim said without batting an eyelid, "All right. By the way, do all the slaves here eat white bread?" "That's too extravagant." Clive said, "Not really." Jim breathed a sigh of relief. The fact that a mere slave could eat almost as much as a big merchant like him made him feel a little unbalanced. Clive said, "Only the slaves who work hard can eat white bread. Those who are lazy can only go to another place to eat black bread and water." Jim's face twitched slightly. The expressions of the leaders of the merchant groups that surrounded them didn't look good. Their living standards were only the same as those of the hard-working slaves in the Miracle City. The faces of some of the leaders of the small merchant groups were even darker. They basically ate black bread every day, and only ate white bread on holidays. Their lives were simply worse than that of slaves. Of course, that was also because they were too stingy. The guards of the merchant group all had dark expressions on their faces as they considered the possibility of jumping ship. The slaves, on the other hand, all revealed expressions of anticipation. Jim asked curiously, "Isn't the Miracle City short of food? If we feed the slaves white bread like this, will the food be able to last?" The leaders of the slave merchant groups also pricked up their ears. In particular, the merchants who transported the food were extremely nervous. As if awaiting trial, they waited for Clive's answer. Clive replied proudly, "The great Master Ian cast a spell to purify part of the Red Earth wasteland. Now, the land can be used to plant breadfruit improved by him. The breadfruit trees can be harvested 3 times a year, and each season, 5,000 caddies of breadfruit can be harvested from 1 mu of land. Furthermore, the land planted with breadfruit trees can also be mixed with some potatoes, sweet potatoes, and other crops. From now on, the Miracle City can be completely self-sufficient in food." The leaders of the slave merchant groups inhaled a breath of cold air, and their eyes flashed with astonishment. The merchants who transported the food had sullen expressions on their faces, and were so depressed that they almost wanted to cry. Jim's eyes turned, and he said with a smile, "Can I buy some breadfruit tree seeds? I can buy them at a high price." As a merchant with a keen sense of smell, Jim perceived the great strategic value of the breadfruit tree seeds at once. Once breadfruit trees were popularized, it would have a huge impact on the entire Fesua plain. Clive said with a smile, "I'm sorry, but I'm not in charge of these things. You can go discuss it with Lena or Master Ian." Under the escort of 400 warriors commanded by Clive, the huge slave caravan directly entered the Miracle City. As soon as he entered the Miracle City, Jim saw the wide and orderly streets of the Miracle City. On both sides of the streets, there were trees giving shade, and there were many exquisite buildings. The streets were paved with a layer of cement. People came and went, yet there was not a trace of garbage or excrement of humans and animals. The whole city looked neat, clean, and beautiful. Jim sighed from the bottom of his heart. What a beautiful city! Master Ian is really amazing. Not only does he have formidable magic strength, but he is also a master in designing cities. I think the Imperial capital can't compare to the Miracle City in many aspects. Randy looked around and sighed, it really can't be compared. I've been to the Imperial capital before. Apart from the aristocratic district and the Imperial City district, the rest of the districts are covered in dust and excrement of livestock and humans. When it rains, you can't go outside without wearing rain boots. This is the city where the upper-class people should live. The leaders of the huge slave merchant group were Jim and Randy, the two most powerful slave merchants in the Ridgex city. That's a lake. I'm not mistaken, right? That's a lake. Suddenly, Jim's eyes flickered, and he pointed into the distance and said in a trembling voice. A lake. My God. That's really a lake. How is that possible? How could there be a lake in the Red Earth wasteland? The merchant leaders also looked in the direction that Jim's slightly fat and short finger was pointing at, and their eyes were filled with astonishment. After the War of Gods, due to the contamination of divine blood, it was difficult for plants to grow in the Red Earth wasteland. The climate also slowly changed. The water vapor was thin, and there were only a few times a year when it rained. It was impossible for there to be a lake in the entire Red Earth wasteland. Even if a lake was artificially made, due to the arid climate, the water vapor would evaporate and eventually turn into a dry dead lake. But now, there was a huge lake in the Miracle City, which was simply heaven-defying. Chapter 219. A lake. What a big artificial lake. Randy sighed with a voice filled with complicated emotions. Then, he exchanged glances with Jim. Located at the junction of the Four Empires, the Red Earth wasteland could be used as a commodity trading hub of the Four Empires. Throughout history, who knew how many ambitious and ruthless people had their eyes on this place? However, due to the lack of water and food in the Red Earth wasteland, in the end, no hero was able to establish a foothold here. But now, Yang Feng purified a large amount of land, opened up farmland that could grow food, and created a huge lake, solving the biggest problem of water shortage in the Red Earth wasteland. It was already foreseeable that the Miracle City would soar in the future. Jim looked at a neatly leveled plot of land with signs inserted in it, and asked curiously, "What are those places?" Clive said with a smile, "The Miracle City is located at the junction of the Four Empires. It can become a commodity trading hub of the Four Empires. These plots of land are for the chambers of commerce that will settle in the Miracle City in the future. These plots of land are not cheap, each of them is worth more than 100,000 gold coins." When the leaders of the small merchant groups heard that, they were first delighted, but then withered. For these small merchant groups, 100,000 gold coins was still too much of a burden. The eyes of the leaders of the medium and large merchant groups lit up, revealing a trace of excitement as if they had spotted their prey. With the speed of development of the Miracle City, it would definitely grow stronger and stronger in the future. Besides, transnational trade had always been the most profitable business. The Miracle City, located at the transportation hub of the Four Empires, would definitely become popular in the future. Clive said with a smile, "Master Ian has already spread the news through other channels. Reportedly, some merchants and aristocrats of the Morance Empire and the Titan Empire are very interested in the Miracle City." When they heard that, the leaders of the merchant groups no longer hesitated, and their eyes flashed with determination. Jim suddenly regretted asking such a question. With this question, he gained countless competitors in an instant. "Sir Commander Clive, can you let us take a look at these plots?" "Yes. Sir Commander Clive, please let us take a look at these plots," the leaders of the merchant groups said passionately. Looking embarrassed, Clive pondered for a while, and then agreed, "All right." The leaders of the merchant groups immediately poured into those plots, their eyes filled with greed as they searched for their favorite plots. Even Jim twisted his fat body and dove into those pieces of land with an agility that didn't match his figure. His eyes shone with greed as he searched for the piece of land he liked. As long as he bought a piece of land, he could definitely sell it for a large sum of money in the future. As for the delivery and collection of the slaves, the leaders of these merchant groups handed it over to their subordinates. Although the divine priest of the god of contracts was expensive, once the contract was signed, both parties were unlikely to violate the power of the god of contracts. After a few hours, the leaders of the merchant groups regrouped and headed towards the city lord's mansion under Clive's escort. Tony. Sapphire Commerce Group's Tony. As soon as Jim entered the reception hall that was specially used to entertain the leaders of the merchant groups, he was slightly taken aback, and his pupils shrank. There were already more than 200 people gathered in the reception hall. All of them were well-dressed and had rich faces. Jim didn't know most of them, but the few he knew were big merchants of the Morance Empire. Tony of the Sapphire Commerce Group was a person in charge of a territory with wealth no less than that of Jim's super merchant group. With a glass of red wine in his hand, Tony came over with a smile. "Jim, Randy, you're really not good friends. Since you found such a big business opportunity, why didn't you call me? It's really disappointing." Jim's chubby face trembled, and he said with a smile, Tony, didn't you go to the Blue River Manor for a vacation? I couldn't get in touch with you for a while, so I didn't call you. By the way, what's the origin of those people?" Tony smiled and didn't pursue the matter. He looked at the rest of the people, his eyes flashed with apprehension, and he whispered, "Many of those guys are barbarians from the Titan Empire." The people of the Morance Empire and the Titan Empire basically called each other barbarians. Numerous wars had broken out between the two empires. However, neither empire could do anything to the other. Jim asked with a puzzled expression, "How did those barbarians get the news?" Tony replied, "Someone went to the Titan Principality and released the news that a person called Master Ian established a miracle city in the Red Earth Wasteland and that there was a huge business opportunity. Furthermore, he swore in front of the clergyman of the God of Contracts that everything he said was true. The stray dogs were attracted." Jim sighed slightly and said with some regret, "It seems that our Master Ian isn't simple. The power he wields is far beyond our imagination." If there were no competitors, Jim and the other caravan leaders could still join forces to negotiate with Yang Feng. But once the merchants of the Titan Empire came, Jim's caravan would have no chance of joining forces. Although merchants had no borders, but the people of the Morance Empire and the Titan Empire looked down on each other. Jim had no friendship with the merchants of the Titan Empire, so there was no way for them to join forces. The merchants of the Titan Empire also stared coldly at Jim and the others. In the tavern, there were clearly two large groups. In addition, there were also some merchants from other lesser principalities who came to take risks, but they didn't amount to much. At this moment, Yang Feng slowly walked in from the side of the tavern. All eyes focused on Yang Feng. "Thank you for attending this banquet. I am Ian, the master of the Miracle City." Yang Feng looked at the hundreds of merchants from the Morance Empire, the Titan Empire, and some lesser principalities, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. "Artace did a good job." Yang Feng's words had just fallen when bursts of applause sounded in the tavern. "You must have seen the plots of land that the Miracle City is going to sell. I am confident that within 10 years, the Miracle City will be built into a giant city with a population of more than 500,000 people. Besides, this place will become the trade hub of the 4 empires. Every inch of the land will be worth its weight in gold. If you have a plot of land you like, you can pick up a pen and paper next to you, write down the plot of land you like and the price you are willing to pay, and then put it into the black box. The Miracle City will immediately do a calculation, and the land will go to the highest bidder." Yang Feng clapped his hands, and beautiful maids filed out from both sides with smiles on their faces, each holding a black box in their hands. Jim smiled bitterly and sighed in his heart, "What a ruthless move. In this way, if you want to buy the plot of land you like, you can only offer a high price." The surrounding merchants picked up a pen and paper and began to write down the plot of land they wanted to buy. Jim pondered for a while, then took a piece of paper, wrote down the plot of land he wanted to buy, and threw it into the black box. Standing on a dais, Yang Feng watched this scene with a smile on his face. Just by selling the land, Yang Feng made a huge profit. Moreover, when the merchants bought the land, they would have to construct it and make use of it, which would attract many workers. With more people, the consumption rate would slowly rise, forming a huge virtuous cycle. Although Yang Feng brought a huge amount of wealth to the Feisua plain, but if the miracle city only allowed people to enter and not leave, then he wouldn't be able to support it. A grain merchant couldn't help but ask, "Master Ian, your miracle city already has a food source. What about us grain merchants in the future?" Each of the breadfruit trees improved by Yang Feng could produce an astonishing amount of food. The grain merchants were worried that they wouldn't be able to make a living in the future. Yang Feng responded with a smile, "Don't worry. Within 2 years, according to the price I agreed with you, you can transport as much food as you have. I'll take it all, as long as there's no problem with the quality." The population of the miracle city would only increase, so it wouldn't be too much to stock up on food. 2 years after the miracle city was fully developed, Yang Feng would still need to import a lot of food. The grain merchants heaved a sigh of relief and revealed a smile on their faces. The merchants wrote down notes and threw them into the black boxes, which were then collected by the beautiful maids. By the way, let me tell you another piece of good news. I'm not only a wizard, but also an alchemist. Recently, I've refined some gadgets in my spare time, so please come and have a look. Yang Feng clapped his hands, and a warrior walked in with a fine steel sword. Yang Feng said with a smile, "Please elect a few people to take a look at this fine steel sword to prove that I haven't tampered with it." The merchant groups of the Morince Empire and the Titan Empire quickly elected 10 highly prestigious merchants, including Jim, Tony, and Randy, to go on the dais. After carefully examining the fine steel sword, Jim waved it a few times, and then said very cautiously, "There's nothing wrong with this fine steel sword. It's an excellent imperial military sword. This sword has been maintained very well. There is no damage to it." The other 9 people took the sword and carefully examined it for a while, and then nodded in agreement. Chapter 220. Military standard fine steel swords weren't inferior swords. On the contrary, they were well made and of excellent quality. Compared to the scimitars and swords used by many adventurers, they were of much better quality. The quality of military weapons had always been far superior to that of civilian weapons. "This is an enchanted sword I forged. Give it a try, Jim." With a flick of his wrist, a sword with a thin blade engraved with mysterious runes appeared in Yang Feng's grip, and he handed it to Jim. Jim took the sword and waved it slightly. A pale green magic radiance and a pale red magic radiance buffed Jim's body, making him feel lighter. At the same time, there seemed to be endless power surging out of his body, causing him to reveal a trace of ecstasy. "These really are magic weapons. My body has been blessed with 2 spells, increasing my agility and strength." The eyes of the merchants of the 2 empires turned bloodshot and flickered with endless greed as they stared at the magic sword in Jim's hand. On the Feisua plain, due to the weave, it was easier to cast spells than on other planes. However, it was dozens of times more difficult to search for the source of spells. Apart from the Weave Church and a few ancient mage organizations, there weren't many alchemists to be found, and magic items were few and far between. Once the magic sword in Jim's hand was put up for auction, it would definitely fetch a sky-high price. Yang Feng said faintly, "Reggie, chi." The warrior Reggie urged his chi and poured it into the standard sword in his hand, causing the standard sword to radiate chi radiance. According to the understanding of warlocks, chi cultivated on the Feisua plain was a powerful life force that could be used to strengthen various weapons and armor. Yang Feng said with a smile, "Jim, chop at the tip of the sword. Wait a moment, let the others test the sharpness of the sword." With the magic sword infused with a dozen grams of divine blood steel, Jim chopped at the tip of the standard fine steel sword of the Morince Empire and easily cut off the fine steel sword blessed with chi. Seeing this scene, the merchants all sucked in a breath of cold air. They were shocked by the sharpness of that magic sword. Magic swords were just long swords that could be enchanted with magic. They were not necessarily sharp enough. That magic sword could already be regarded as a peerless sword that could cut through iron as if it were mud, even without being enchanted with magic. Now that it could be enchanted with magic, it could be said to be a heaven-defying sword. The magic swords collected by many noble families were only of this standard. Jim fondled the longsword admiringly and exclaimed in ecstasy, "Good sword, what a sharp treasured sword. Jim, get out of the way. Let me try." Randy pushed Jim away impatiently, snatched the magic sword from Jim's hand, and slashed at Reggie's steel sword that had been strengthened with combat energy. Dang! With a crisp sound, the fine steel sword in Reggie's hand was sliced off. Randy's eyes also revealed a trace of excitement. "Good sword, it's indeed a peerless sword." Tony's eyes lit up and he snatched the magic sword. "It's my turn." The 10 merchants took turns to try out the magic sword and praised it profusely. Even though the magic sword could no longer be enchanted with magic by the 5th person, but they were still very satisfied. To be enchanted with 8 level 0 spells a day, to be extremely sharp, and to be able to cut through iron as if it were mud, such a treasured sword was definitely a rare treasure. I named this treasured sword Warrior's Edge. Every year, at this time, I hold an auction here and auction 5 of these treasured swords. If you're interested, you can come and participate in the auction at this time every year. Yang Feng smiled. With a flick of his wrist, 5 Warrior's Edge appeared in his hand. Lena came over with a smile on her face, took the 5 Warrior's Edge sheathed in an exquisite scabbard, handed 4 of them to a maid behind her, and looked around, saying, "I am Lena, the Miracle City's internal affairs manager. I will now be acting as the auctioneer. The starting bid for this Warrior's Edge is 100,000 gold coins, and each bid increment must be no less than 1,000 gold coins. The auction begins now, 150,000 gold coins." Just as Lena's words fell, Jim impatiently quoted a high price. Hearing the sky-high price, the venue went silent for a while. At the time, Yang Feng had bought hundreds of slaves in the slave market for tens of thousands of gold coins. For a magic sword, Jim offered a sky-high price of 150,000 gold coins, which shocked everyone. A middle-aged merchant from the Titan Empire said flatly, 300,000 gold coins. Hearing that voice, everyone was shocked, and the venue went silent. Lena said with a smile, 300,000 gold coins going once, 300,000 gold coins going twice, 300,000 gold coins going thrice. Sold, this magic sword is yours. Numerous gazes were focused on the middle-aged merchant from the Titan Empire, and their gazes were filled with complicated emotions. 300,000 gold coins was definitely not a small sum. For the middle-aged merchant to be able to take out so much liquid funds without batting an eyelid, he was definitely someone from a super large merchant group. Lena said with a smile, "The auction for the second Warrior's Edge will now begin. The auction rules are the same as before. The auction begins now, 110,000 gold coins. 120,000 gold coins." Just as everyone was quoting prices, the middle-aged merchant from the Titan Empire still said flatly, 300,000 gold coins. The entire venue went silent once again, gazes full of complex emotions and hatred focused on the middle-aged merchant. Lena said with a smile, 300,000 gold coins going once, 300,000 gold coins going twice, 300,000 gold coins going thrice. Sold, this magic sword is yours. Lena said with a smile, "The auction for the third Warrior's Edge will now begin. The auction rules are the same as before. The auction begins now, 300,000 gold coins." Just as Lena's words fell, the middle-aged merchant directly opened his mouth, blocking the desire of those merchants who were trying to increase the price. Jim hesitated for a moment, his gaze fell on the 2 remaining magic swords, and he gritted his teeth and quoted a price, 310,000 gold coins, 320,000 gold coins. 330,000 gold coins. The atmosphere in the venue seemed to be ignited at once. The price of the magic sword rose steadily until it reached 500,000 gold coins, when it was bought by a wealthy merchant from the Titan Empire. The corners of Lena's mouth rose slightly, revealing a sincere smile, and she said, the auction for the fourth warrior's edge will now begin. The auction rules are the same as before. The auction begins now. The middle-aged merchant from the Titan Empire quoted a terrifyingly high price in an attempt to deter the rest: 400,000 gold coins, 410,000 gold coins, 420,000 gold coins. The price of the warrior's edge suddenly rose steadily. Without stopping, it directly broke through 500,000 gold coins, all the way to 610,000 gold coins, when it was bought by the red-eyed Jim. The corners of Lena's mouth rose slightly, revealing a sincere smile, and she said, "The auction for the last warrior's edge will now begin. The auction rules are the same as before. The auction begins now." A merchant from the Titan Empire, his eyes bloodshot, directly quoted a price: 600,000 gold coins. This magic sword, which could cut through iron as if it were mud, was very popular in the martial Titan Empire. Many greater aristocrats liked to collect such peerless swords. If they could meet a bigwig who liked this kind of sword, it would be normal for it to reach 1 million gold coins. The poor of the Fesua plain were very poor, but greater aristocrats of the various empires could even afford to raise tens of thousands of private soldiers. Such peak greater aristocrats were not short of money. Such a peerless sword could definitely help those big nobles recruit top powerhouses such as Sky Knights and Heavenly Knights. Randy's eyes were bloodshot as he said, 610,000 gold coins. Tony also directly went all out and roared, 650,000 gold coins, 700,000 gold coins. The competition for the last warrior's edge was extremely fierce. In the end, it was bought by a wealthy merchant from the Titan Empire for the sky-high price of 800,000 gold coins. At this time, the gazes of the greater merchants focused on the middle-aged merchant from the Titan Empire, their gazes brimming with admiration. The middle-aged merchant from the Titan Empire had a very unique vision. At the beginning, he bought the two magic swords at a sky-high price in the eyes of the greater merchants. Now it seemed that the middle-aged merchant from the Titan Empire had made a fortune. His profits had nearly doubled. Lena said with a smile, "Master Ian is also a grandmaster pharmacist and can refine a variety of potions. When you come next year, you should be able to buy a variety of mystical potions at the auction. I think that you won't be disappointed when you come next year." Grandmaster pharmacist. After hearing this, the greater merchants inhaled a mouthful of cold air. They looked at Yang Feng as if they were looking at a gold mine emitting the radiance of gold coins as it walked. Potioneering was also a branch of magic. On the Fesua plain, because wizards would forget the spells they memorized the day before, they had to memorize spells repeatedly, wasting a lot of time. Therefore, there were very few wizards who studied potioneering. Every kind of magic potion had mystical powers. Some magic potions could dispel many curses. Some magic potions could curse others. Some magic potions could inflict strange poisons that even divine spells would find difficult to dispel. Some magic potions could restore youth for a short period of time. Some magic potions could restore people's energy. Every kind of magic potion was a rare treasure. Generally, only the royal families of empires as well as some greater aristocrats had some magic potions. Just a magic potion could make the miracle city in the Red Earth wasteland a holy land in the eyes of many people. They had come from far away. Chapter 221. Yang Feng said with a smile, "Presumably, everyone knows that what the miracle city lacks the most is people. Henceforth, if anyone brings 500 slaves to the miracle city alive, you can buy a magic elixir from me. Of course, I'll also give you a satisfactory price for those slaves. I won't let you come empty-handed." The middle-aged merchant of the Titan Empire, who spent 300,000 gold coins to buy the two magic swords, stood up and said, "Master Ian, I'll return to my country and organize the supply. I'll definitely satisfy you." Yang Feng said with a smile, "If you satisfy me, I'll also guarantee that you'll be satisfied." "Master Ian, don't worry, I'll go back and organize the supply." "Yes, I'll also go back and organize the supply." The merchants who came from all over the world were very excited and shouted loudly. The banquet came to a successful end. Amazing! Just the 5 magic swords have earned us more than 5 million gold coins. Master, you're really amazing. Inside a room, Lena stood behind Yang Feng, massaged his shoulders, and said with a look of worship on her face. More than 5 million gold coins, this was definitely a huge sum of money. It was enough to buy all the slaves and various supplies brought by the Reject City's allied merchant group, and still have a lot left over. Yang Feng said with a faint smile, "How much was the land sold for?" Lena looked at Yang Feng with a look of worship on her face and said softly, "A total of 21,680,000 gold coins. That piece of land with nothing on it could be sold for so many gold coins just by sticking a sign on it." Lena couldn't quite believe it. After all, the land was worthless before. Yang Feng sighed somewhat regretfully. "Unfortunately, the sale price was too low. The price is still a bit low. If it wasn't for the sake of quickly attracting more merchants to stay in the Miracle City, Yang Feng wouldn't have sold the plot so easily. Real estate was a windfall among windfall profits." Lena's eyelids twitched, and she was somewhat speechless. The prices marked on the plots of land were already astonishingly high in her opinion. But listening to Yang Feng's tone, the plots of land were sold cheaply, which made her somewhat incredulous. Yang Feng's eyes flashed with a peculiar glint, and he mused, "With so many gold coins, and the time is almost up. We must start preparing for the next step." 50 miles to the west of Miracle City, under a flat red land, it had been excavated and built into an extremely spacious, 100-meter-deep underground base. The underground base was filled with all kinds of mysterious runes that were used to block all kinds of probing. Even if it was a god-level powerhouse, they would have to use their incarnation to personally come to this area and use their divine power to see through the underground base. A level 1 mobile fortified stronghold was built 100 meters underground. Although the Mechanical Legion couldn't appear on the Feisua Plain, but the huge computing power of the portable fortified stronghold's optical computer and the ability to synthesize all kinds of elixirs were what Yang Feng needed. Yang Feng reclined in the chair of the portable fortified stronghold's main control core and raised his head to look at the sky. In the air, pictures of beautiful female half-blood beast men kept flashing, and below those pictures were their resumes. The corners of Yang Feng's mouth rose slightly. "Based on all the information, it's her." The projection also stabilized in midair, revealing a beautiful blonde woman with a pair of lion ears. At the same time, her eyes were burning with unyielding fury, making her an unforgettable sight. The Red Earth Wasteland was located at the border between the Kasama region and the Beastman Empire. In the Beastman language of the Feisua Plain, Kasama meant hybrid. In fact, the Kasama region was a place that the Beastmen despised as a hybrid area. The land in the Kasama region was extremely barren, and could only produce some sour and unpalatable berries, potatoes, and some unpalatable roots. There was a kind of people living in the Kasama region, and they were hybrids between beastmen and humans, half-blood beastmen. In fact, half-blood beastmen were the product of a tragedy. Once the two human empires invaded the territory of the Beastman Empire, they would plunder many Beastman beauties. When the Beastman Empire's armies invaded the territory of the human empires, they would also be merciless and plunder a large number of human beauties. Half-blood beastmen born under this tragedy weren't regarded as compatriots by humans and beastmen, but as filthy and sinful existences. According to the customs of the Beastman Empire, once half-blood beastmen were born, they would be directly thrown into the Kasama region and abandoned. The half-blood beastmen in the Kasama region would silently accept the newborn half-blood beastmen as their compatriots. As if cursed by the gods, the offspring of half-blood beastmen and other races would also be half-blood beastmen. The offspring would be treated with contempt and even hostility by the many races of the Feisua Plain. Behind a hillside in the Kasama district, there was a half-beastman girl with golden hair and blue eyes. She had a golden ponytail and was about 1.85 meters tall. Her breasts were almost bursting out of her clothes, and her legs were slender and beautiful. Her appearance was very beautiful, but she had a heroic aura. She was about 16 or 17 years old, and she had a pair of lion ears. She held a wooden sword in her hand and continuously brandished it. Drops of sweat slowly dripped from the forehead of the half-blood beast-man girl, nearly drenching her clothes. Even so, she didn't slack off in the slightest. She practiced a set of the most basic swordsmanship. Even that set of swordsmanship was incomplete, but she still did not give up. She chopped, flicked, stabbed, lifted, and slashed with her sword. Every sword move was extremely serious, enough to make many martial arts practitioners blush with shame. Suddenly, the face of the half-blood beast-man girl turned pale, her breathing stagnated, and she spat out a mouthful of blood that sprinkled on the ground. The set of swordsmanship was incomplete. The half-blood beast-man girl practiced this set of swordsmanship so hard that she unknowingly injured herself. Without the guidance of a great teacher, it was extremely difficult to practice swordsmanship. At the time, although Yang Feng had the inheritance of the Black Cottage, but he still went to great lengths to join Warlock College Antalya in order to get the guidance of a great teacher and a huge amount of cultivation resources. A 12 or 13-year-old half-blood beast-man girl with a sallow complexion, a pair of cat ears, and slender limbs that looked like they could be easily snapped ran over and said with a look of horror on her face, "Big Sister Catherine, it's bad. So many wolf cavalrymen are attacking our village." Catherine's pretty complexion changed, her eyes flickered with endless anger, and she gritted her teeth and said, "Wolf cavalrymen. Is the winter hunt starting so soon? Those bastards!" The so-called winter hunt was when the beastmen of the Beastman Empire would sweep through the Kasama region from time to time during winter. They would plunder the food of half-blood beastmen and capture the beautiful half-blood beastmen for their own enjoyment, or sell to human slave merchants in exchange for various supplies. Because many half-blood beastmen were the offspring of handsome men or beautiful women, they were generally not ugly. Although they couldn't compare to elves, who were all handsome men and beautiful women, but the proportion of beautiful women was still much higher than that of humans. Half-blood beastman female slaves were also very popular among humans. Whether it was the Beastman Empire or the Human Empire, they had never regarded half-blood beastmen as their compatriots. Therefore, when it came to killing half-blood beastmen, they didn't show the slightest bit of leniency. It was as if they were harvesting chives, harvesting one batch after another. Catherine's eyes almost spewed flames of anger, and she said while stressing each syllable, "Little sister Kitty Kitty, hide here. I'm going to find a way to rescue Aunt Gina and the others." Without waiting for Kitty 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 to reply, Catherine tightly grasped her only weapon, the wooden sword, and rushed towards the hillside. Once she rushed out of the hillside, she arrived at the small mountain village where Catherine lived. At this time, huge wolves could be seen running amok in the small mountain village. Many of the huge wolves were biting and chewing on the half-blood beast-men in the small mountain village. Blood splattered everywhere, and the entire mountain village was filled with screams and wails. The humanoid werewolf warriors were dragging the half-blood beast-man women in the mountain village, laughing wildly and humiliating them without the slightest scruple. "You beasts!" When Catherine saw the miserable scene that resembled hell on earth, anger surged in her heart. She waved the wooden sword and stabbed at a werewolf warrior. "Ah, there's a beautiful chick here. This time, we really struck it big. If we catch her and sell her, our family will have food to last through the winter." The werewolf warrior had the cultivation base of a senior warrior. His eyes lit up, and he laughed heartily. He swung the scimitar in his hand, and with a casual shake, he sent Catherine's wooden sword flying. He reached out and grabbed Catherine's head, and just like that, he forcibly pressed Catherine to the ground. No matter how Catherine struggled, she couldn't break free from the werewolf warrior's grasp. "And a lion race half-blood beast man, haha. Maybe one of your parents is a member of the royal family. I can't take it anymore, I'm going to F***ck you now. This way, I can also play with a half-blood beast man with royal bloodline. You might even be the daughter of a prince or princess." The werewolf warrior smiled malevolently, and began to tear off Catherine's clothes. His eyes were filled with undisguised lust. "Why? Why did the heavens do this to us half-blood beast men? Why? We didn't do anything wrong. We didn't come to this world of our own free will. Why are you doing this to us? Catherine's eyes were bloodshot, and she howled mournfully. 2 streams of blood tears flowed down from her resolute and courageous eyes, showing that she was already at the peak of grief and indignation. Since Catherine could remember, this hellish scene had been repeating over and over again. This filled her heart with the desire to become stronger and caused her deep pain. Now, she was almost in despair. Chapter 222. Good child, you half-blood beast men aren't wrong. What's wrong is that you half-blood beast men don't have a god protecting you. Along with a slight sigh, Yang Feng, shrouded in sacred light, stepped into the void and walked over, looking like the embodiment of a god walking in the secular world. When Catherine saw Yang Feng walk out midair, it was as if she saw a glimmer of hope in the depths of a dark and despairing hell. The eyes of the Wolfman warrior flashed with a glint of graveness. He grabbed Catherine and threw her aside, then faced upwards and issued a shrill howl. Enemy attack, the other party is a human wizard. The Wolfman warrior had just issued a shrill howl, when Yang Feng took a step, appeared in front of it, and a sword ray flashed at its neck. What a fast sword! The last thought flashed in the mind of the Wolfman warrior. Immediately after, its head flew high, and a mouthful of hot blood sprayed out of its body. The drops of blood sputtered towards Yang Feng, but were ricocheted after coming into contact with the life force field protecting him. Not a single drop of blood stained him. The wolf cavalrymen were battle-hardened elites. After hearing the warning of their comrade, they immediately picked up their weapons and ran towards their battle wolves. Yang Feng flicked his fingers, and the level 0 spell arcane projectiles bombarded the heads of the wolf cavalrymen like raindrops. When the wolf cavalrymen were hit in the head by the level 0 arcane projectiles, as if hit by a heavy hammer, they bled from their facial orifices and fell to the ground. The eyes of a dozen huge wolves flickered with a sinister glint. Their figures flashed, and they madly pounced at Yang Feng. When the dozen-plus wolves appeared in front of Yang Feng, he blurred into motion. Instead of retreating, he charged into the wolf pack and slashed at the wolves with the secret treasure sword forged from divine blood steel in his hand. After a dozen grams of divine blood steel were added to an ordinary fine steel sword, it could slice through iron as if it were mud. The secret treasure sword forged entirely from divine blood steel was extremely sharp. Wherever the sword rays passed, the hard bones of the huge wolves were easily sliced apart as if tofu. The sword rays interweaved, and the dozen huge wolves were turned into countless pieces, with blood spraying everywhere. So strong! Is he a god who has come to save us? Catherine's beautiful eyes reflected Yang Feng's figure, her heart brimming with excitement and worship. In her still slightly immature mind, a powerhouse like Yang Feng was a top powerhouse in the world, and gods were nothing more than this. When the wolf cavalrymen saw how terrifying Yang Feng's strength was, they immediately howled, mounted their giant wolves, and scattered. Yang Feng creased his eyebrows slightly when he saw the wolf cavalrymen flee in all directions. He cast spider web to trap 8 of the most ferocious wolf cavalrymen, and then stopped his pursuit. The biggest advantage of the wolf cavalry was their high mobility. If they couldn't beat them, they would choose to escape. It was very difficult to annihilate them. Catherine got up and stared at Yang Feng. After hesitating for a moment, she gritted her teeth and asked, "Sir Wizard, are you here to capture us?" Over the years, the people that appeared in the Kasama district were either human slave hunters or the ferocious beastmen winter hunt army. Kathleen asked with a hint of fear in her voice. Catherine knelt in front of Yang Feng. Her beautiful eyes flashed with a touch of unswerving determination, and she implored, "If you want to capture us, then capture me. I can be your slave, and I can also be your test subject. I only beg you to let the other people in our village go." Yang Feng looked at the sensible half-blood beast-man girl who was willing to sacrifice herself, sighed slightly, and reached out to help her up. "Good child, get up. I'm not here to capture you. I'm just a great wizard Ian who pursues the truth and walks on the path to godhood. If you want to obtain enough power and knowledge to protect your people, to prevent half-blood beast men from being humiliated, to stop being called bastards, and to live with dignity on this land. Come to this place to meet me tonight. Yang Feng pointed with his finger, a ray of light entered Catherine's forehead, and a message was imprinted in her mind. Yang Feng handed Catherine the sword forged from divine blood steel in his hand. His body collapsed, turned into countless specks of light and disappeared. When Catherine saw Yang Feng disappear before her eyes, she became absent-minded. If she hadn't seen the sword in her right hand, she would have thought that everything was a dream. When Catherine's gaze fell on the 8 wolf cavalrymen bound by spider webs, her eyes practically spurted flames of anger, and she strode over. At this time, the remaining dozens of half-blood beast men of the half-blood beastman village gathered together, staring at the 8 wolf cavalrymen with eyes full of hatred and fear. A wolf cavalryman bound by spider webs glared and threatened fiercely, "Fuck. You lowly bastards, why don't you let us out right now? If anything happens to me in your village, our Copper Wolf tribe will definitely send soldiers to slaughter all the people in your village." Yi Zichen thought. "Even the dozen villages around you are no exception. Let us go, and we'll spare your lives." The eyes of the remaining dozens of half-blood beast men flashed with a touch of fear. The brutal Copper Wolf tribe had massacred a lot of villages. Some of these half-blood beast men had wandered into this village from villages that had been massacred. A middle-aged man with a pair of dog ears and an ordinary appearance hesitated for a moment before saying, "Let's release these few werewolf masters." Another half-blood beast man with wolf ears also hesitated, and said unwillingly, "Yes. Let them go." The eyes of a somewhat good-looking young woman with a pair of cat ears flashed with hatred, and she screamed mournfully, "Don't let them go. Kill them. These bastards let their giant wolves eat my husband and child. I want these bastards to pay with their lives. I can't let these bastards off. Are you still men? These bastards had their wargs eat our people, they bully and humiliate our women. You still want to let them go? Are you still men, are you still human?" When they heard the hoarse roar of the cat-eared young woman, the half-blood beast men lowered their heads, and their eyes flashed with shame and helplessness. The eyes of the middle-aged man with a pair of dog ears teared up, and he almost shouted, "Human. Are we half-blood beast men still human? In the eyes of everyone in this world, we half-blood beast men are just slaves, natural slaves. I also want to be a dignified person. But we were born to be slaves, this is our fate. Do you want to implicate the lives of dozens of people in our village in order to vent your anger? Besides, those dozens of villages are hundreds of lives. The dead are already dead, but we still have to live." When they heard the tragic words, many half-blood beast men wept with tears in their eyes. They also wanted to be human and live with dignity, but the whole world of the Feisua Plain rejected them. The whole world thought that they were bastards, natural slaves. They wanted to resist, but they didn't have the power to. No one would teach half-blood beast men magic and martial arts. Without knowledge and inheritance, they could only fall behind. They didn't even have the power to resist. One of the wolf cavalrymen trapped in the spider web spat out a mouthful of saliva and sneered, "Tui. A lowly slave will always be a lowly slave. No. In this world, no one is a natural slave. As long as we don't think of ourselves as slaves, then we will never be slaves. These bastards must die." With the sword forged from divine blood steel in hand, Catherine walked over from the side, took a step forward, and slashed at the wolf cavalryman. A sword ray flashed, and the wolf cavalryman, who was extremely arrogant a moment ago, was cut in two. Its sinister head revealed a trace of astonishment. It never expected that it would be killed by a half-blood beast man like Catherine. Before anyone could react, Catherine brandished her sword and killed the 8 wolf cavalrymen one by one. The blood gushing out of the wolf cavalrymen splashed all over her, making her look full of a heroic, bloody, and bewitching temperament. She looked like a goddess of war who killed her way out of a sea of blood. With a look of horror on his face, the middle-aged half-blood beast man knelt on the ground, shivered, and accused with grief and indignation, "Catherine, you killed them. You actually killed them. It's over, it's over. It's over, we're screwed. We're screwed. The strength of the Copper Wolf tribe isn't something we can resist. That human wizard doesn't appear at any time. He just acted on a whim and saved us. But he can save us for a while, but he can't save us forever. Now that you've killed these 8 werewolf masters for a moment of pleasure, you've sown the seeds of calamity for our village. When the half-blood beast men saw this, they were both delighted and afraid, not knowing what to do. From the bottom of their hearts, they naturally wanted to kill the 8 ferocious wolf cavalrymen. But when they thought of the consequences of killing the 8 ferocious wolf cavalrymen, they were terrified. Catherine's beautiful eyes blossomed with radiance, and she barked, "Have you ever thought about why we half-blood beast men are so miserable? We were born to be regarded as slaves, and can be hunted and killed wantonly like livestock." The half-blood beast men fell silent. They had been pondering this question since they were born, but they hadn't come to a conclusion. Catherine said loudly, "That's because we half-blood beast men don't have a god of our own. Without the protection of a god, we are bullied and humiliated. Not long ago, a great god was finally willing to take pity on us half-blood beast men, and sent an emissary to help us. That human wizard is a divine emissary sent by that great god to save us half-blood beast men." Chapter 223. Interesting. This Catherine is really outstanding. She can adapt to the situation. I just gave her a little poke, and she could react like this. That's amazing. Every race has its geniuses. She should be a half-blood beastman genius. If there is a Bo-Lu, then there is a horse. Horses are common, but Bo-Lu is rare. It's quite interesting to be a Bo-Lu. Above the clouds, sitting on the magic carpet, Yang Feng looked at the holographic scene projected by the holographic projector, and the corners of his mouth rose into a smile. The middle-aged man with dog ears was taken aback, and then whispered, "Is there really a god willing to take pity on us half-blood beastmen?" Expectant and hopeful gazes focused on Catherine at once. Catherine's thoughts revolved, and she said loudly, "That's right, the name of the great god is Ian. He will send a divine emissary to guide us half-blood beastmen out of our predicament and no longer be slaves to others. We half-blood beastmen are not natural slaves." Great. That's great. Thank you, great god Ian. Praise you, great god Ian. The half-blood beast men praised loudly with tears streaming down their faces. Pure faith power diffused from them, and then gradually dissipated because they couldn't find a target to attach to. In the sky, Yang Feng cast a secret method and looked at the faith power that appeared and then collapsed and dissipated from the half-blood beast men, and he sighed slightly, "What a strong faith power. I'm afraid that each of them has reached the pinnacle of shallow believers and is infinitely close to true believers. Suffering is really the best way to harvest faith power." Believers were divided into 6 classes: non-believer, pseudo-believer, shallow believer, true believer, fanatic, and saint. In addition to non-believers, even pseudo-believers would provide a trace of faith power when they silently recited prayers. Under normal circumstances, with the same prayer time and the same soul strength, the faith power provided by 100 pseudo-believers was only comparable to that provided by one shallow believer. The faith power provided by 100 shallow believers was equivalent to that provided by one true believer. The faith power provided by 100 true believers was equivalent to that provided by one fanatic. The power of faith provided by 100 fanatics was equivalent to the power of faith provided by one saint. Of course, if a creature's soul was strong enough, then the power of faith they provided would also be stronger. Therefore, there were many species that did not have a lot of numbers, but their individual souls were strong enough. Their gods were also very powerful. The half-beast men race had suffered a lot. Without the protection of the gods, they were one of the most vulnerable races. Yang Feng chose half-blood beast men because this race, which had suffered hardships, was more likely to give birth to devout believers who could provide large amounts of faith force. In the plain of Tyrandot subcontinent, those vampires were being hunted by humans. They also suffered a lot. They were full of pious hope to give birth to a god of the vampires. That kind of strong obsession made most of them existences above the level of true believers. Coupled with their soul strength that far surpassed that of ordinary people, they were able to allow the Blood Clan King Rary to ignite his divine fire and evolve into a demigod. Under Catherine's reassurance, the half-blood beast men began to clean up the village and bury their loved ones. At the same time, they skinned the giant wolves and began to cook them. Although the giant wolf meat was not tasty, but it was rare meat that they could obtain. Time passed slowly. The sky had just turned slightly dark. Catherine took the sword forged from divine blood steel and quickly went to the place where she and Yang Feng had agreed to meet. After arriving at the place, Catherine began to practice the swordsmanship that was full of mistakes under the weak moonlight. This was the only martial art she could learn. Don't practice it. You're practicing the wrong swordsmanship. If you continue to practice it, you'll only ruin your body. Under the weak moonlight, Yang Feng, shrouded in a faint sacred radiance, slowly walked out from the side. Master Ian. Thank you very much for saving the people of our village. Catherine prostrated herself on the ground, kowtowed 5 times, and expressed her thanks to Yang Feng. This was the highest form of thanks given to her by a former slave by a half-blood beastman. Yang Feng said, "Get up." Yes. Catherine stood up at once, looked straight at Yang Feng with a clear and firm gaze, and said, "I want to get enough power and knowledge to protect my people, so that half-blood beastmen will no longer be humiliated, no longer be called bastards, and can live with dignity on this land. Please teach me what to do. I'm willing to pay any price. As long as I have it, you can take it. I'm a wizard who pursues the truth and walks on the path to godhood. I need you to become the pope of my church and spread my faith among half-blood beast men. Half-blood beast men who are willing to believe in me and don't violate my doctrine will receive my protection. Half-blood beast men who receive my protection will receive food that can be preserved, fruits, clean water, a safe residence, and live with dignity. Anyone who tries to capture you will be my enemy. My army will tear those enemies to pieces. Catherine, are you willing to become the pope of my church and spread my faith among half-blood beast men? This is a path full of thorns and sacrifices. I alone won't be enough. I need the entire half-blood beast men to continuously struggle and make countless sacrifices. Only then will there be hope for success." Shrouded in sacred light, Yang Feng spoke slowly like the embodiment of a god. "I'm willing," Catherine said without hesitation. Half-blood beast men were discriminated against on the Feisua plain, with no one passing on knowledge about power to them. Now that someone finally got an opportunity, they naturally wouldn't let it go. Yang Feng extended his hand, and a knowledge crystal appeared in his hand, which flew towards Catherine. This is a knowledge crystal that can be practiced until the demigod rank martial art Lion King battle scripture. Crush it, and you'll master this martial art. Yang Feng didn't lack secret methods that could be practiced until the Starry Sky Warlock rank. In the Tyrannid subcontinent, the 6 great warlock groups all had secret methods that could be practiced until the Starry Sky Warlock rank, and there were even 3 secret methods that could be practiced until the Moonlight Warlock rank. However, the 3 secret methods that could be practiced until the Moonlight Warlock rank were all ancient secret methods. The requirements were too high, and he couldn't achieve them. The Lion King battle scripture was one of the 3 secret methods that could be practiced until the Moonlight Warlock rank. This was a secret method that human warlocks learned from the Feisua Plains Beastman Divine Systems Lion God Arketh and then improved upon it. This was one of the reasons why Yang Feng chose Catherine, a Lionman half-blood beastman girl. Kathleen reached out and grabbed, directly crushing the knowledge crystal of the martial technique. That was the secret technique of the Lion King battle scripture. The next moment, it entered her mind. Not long after, a huge phantom of a lion suddenly appeared behind Catherine, emitting a powerful pressure. This was the power inherited from her bloodline, and now, it was finally stimulated by the Lion King battle scripture. When Yang Feng saw this, the corners of his mouth rose slightly. "Not bad, the power of her bloodline is beyond my imagination." It seems that either her father or mother is a divine descendant with God's bloodline flowing through them. I've struck it big this time. Catherine let out a roar towards the sky, and a wave of war lion chi gushed out from her body. Her figure flashed, and she executed a complete set of Lion King fist technique in the open space. Boom! After Catherine executed the complete Lion King fist art, she finally slammed her fist into the ground and blasted open a small fist imprint. Catherine's figure shook slightly, and she arrived in front of Yang Feng. Her beautiful eyes were filled with adoration and gratitude. Thank you, sir, for teaching me the Lion King battle scripture. Catherine will never forget your kindness. Yang Feng smiled and flicked his finger, and another knowledge crystal flew into Catherine's hand. The Lion King battle scripture is the signature martial art of lion men of the Beastman Empire's royal family. Except for lion men, the effects of cultivating it aren't good for other people. I'll teach you the radiant battle text. Any beastman can cultivate this martial art. If you cultivate it to the pinnacle, you can become a legend rank warrior. Catherine alone wasn't enough to support the entire half-blood beastman race. Most people could cultivate an inherited martial art, which was the foundation for the prosperity of the race. Although the Radiant Battle text's grade wasn't as high as that of the Lion King battle scripture, but for the entire half-blood beastman race, it was much more precious than the Lion King battle scripture. Catherine crushed the knowledge crystal and memorized the Radiant Battle text's cultivation method. Then, she slowly opened her eyes and stared at Yang Feng. Although she didn't say any words of thanks, but her beautiful eyes were filled with unswerving determination. This is the Monarch's sword. It can bless you with 4 spells: Inspire Courage, Monarch's Dignity, Extraordinary Physique, and Monarch's Power. This is the Monarch's armor. It has a formidable defensive power and is blessed with 9 spells: Warping Force Field, Fire Resistance Enhancement, Water Resistance Enhancement, Wind Resistance Enhancement, Earth Resistance Enhancement, Ice Resistance Enhancement, Light Resistance Enhancement, and Darkness Resistance Enhancement. The future of half-blood beastmen needs you to use these 2 weapons to forge it. With a flick of his wrist, Yang Feng handed Catherine a secret treasure sword forged entirely from divine blood steel and a secret treasure armor forged entirely from divine blood steel. In terms of material quality, the secret treasure sword forged entirely from divine blood steel already surpassed that of many legend-rank secret treasure swords. Its only shortcoming was that the magic attached to it wasn't strong enough. The same was true for the secret treasure armor forged entirely from divine blood steel. However, to the current Catherine, this was definitely a godly weapon-level treasure. Chapter 224. After Catherine left the hillside, she quickly returned to her village and gathered all the people in the village together. After Catherine gathered everyone, she immediately announced, "We can't stay here anymore. We have to leave and migrate elsewhere." Dick, a half-blood beast man with a pair of tiger ears, gave a long sigh and said, "We don't have much food. Besides, where are we going to migrate to? There's no place for us half-blood beast men to survive." Bitterness welled up in the hearts of the half-blood beast men present. Chuck, a tiger tribe half-blood beast man with a pair of tiger ears, a sturdy figure, and a 60% resemblance to Dick, suddenly pointed at a half-blood beast man with a pair of lion ears standing next to Catherine and asked, "Catherine, who is he? Why haven't I seen him before?" The half-blood beast men also looked strangely at the lion man half-blood beast man Yang Feng standing next to Catherine. Yang Feng said with a light smile, "Hello, I am one of the divine emissaries sent by the mighty god Ian to help you. My name is Caesar." After he finished speaking, frightening sky night rank chi spread from Yang Feng, making it hard for the many half-blood beast men present to breathe. After warlocks used secret methods to condense a soul seed and establish a spirit seed, the power they obtained was named life energy by warlocks. It could simulate a variety of powers, and chi was no exception. Most of the half-blood beast men present weren't even knights and hadn't cultivated chi. As such, they couldn't resist Yang Feng's imposing aura. Divine emissary. There really is a god who wants to help us. Thank the heavens have finally opened their eyes. When the half-blood beast men felt the formidable aura released by Yang Feng, tears streamed down their cheeks and they muttered. When Chuck sensed the bottomless and frightening aura released by Yang Feng, he couldn't help but feel dispirited. He was well aware that with his strength, he would never be able to practice cultivation to Yang Feng's level. When Dick saw this, he no longer doubted Yang Feng's identity. The dozens of people in the half-blood beastman village weren't enough for Yang Feng to kill. If Yang Feng wanted to capture all of them and sell them as slaves, then they wouldn't have the strength to resist. These half-blood beastmen couldn't think of anything that could be plotted against them. After displaying his power, Yang Feng smiled and retreated to Catherine's side. Yang Feng needed to control half-blood beastmen through Catherine. After all, there were too many things that Yang Feng needed to do. In fact, every deity would have countless subordinates to share their burdens. Otherwise, even if they had divinity, they would be exhausted and would not have the time to train and enjoy themselves. Catherine's beautiful eyes flickered with expectation, and she said loudly, "Red Earth Wasteland." With his tremendous divine power, the great god Ian built a city for us half-blood beast men in the Red Earth Wasteland and purified a huge piece of land. There we have food to eat, clean water, and a safe place to live. We can live with dignity there and no longer be anyone's slave. A city that belongs to us beast men. Wonderful. If that's the case, that would be great. The beast men all cried tears of joy. A city that belonged to half-blood beast men, this was the dream of half-blood beast men for thousands of years. However, this was just a dream that no one had ever been able to realize. This was because they had no knowledge and no power. No one was willing to impart knowledge and power to these pitiful half-blood beast men, because they were the product of tragedy and were despised by everyone. Catherine said with a solemn expression, "However, the city that belongs to half-blood beast men can only be entered by believers of the great god Ian. If you want to enter the city with me, then you must believe in the great god Ian, the sole god of us half-blood beast men. Those who are unwilling can leave now." "I am willing to believe in the great god Ian." "Me too." None of the half-blood beast men present refused to believe in Yang Feng. In the face of the pressure of reality, they just wanted to live well. No matter which god gave them a way to live, they would believe in that god. This is an idol given to us by the god Ian. We need to pray to him every day to become his believers. At the same time, he will send divine emissaries to bless and protect us. Catherine took out an idol with a face 80% similar to Yang Feng's, yet it was shrouded in a layer of misty light, making it hard to see clearly, and placed it on the table. "Now, let's carry out a prayer ceremony. Learn from me." Catherine clenched her hands, closed her eyes, and silently recited a prayer. "Great Lord Ian, you are the ruler of half-blood beast men, a supreme divine being. You are the monarch of light. You are the sower of fear. Great Lord Ian, you are the invincible god of war. You are the guardian of the good and the weak. Great Lord Ian, we offer you our most pious faith. From now on, after death, we will return to your divine country. We will become your shield and resist all harm for you. We will become your sword and slash all enemies for you. Great Lord Ian, may your divine country become a star in the sky." Under Catherine's lead, the half-blood beast men began to earnestly learn her posture and prayed earnestly and devoutly. Pure faith power diffused from the half-blood beast men and entered the idol created by Yang Feng. Yang Feng looked at the faith power condensed on the idol, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. "I've finally taken the first step." Most of the people in the human race already had faith. In this world where gods constantly performed miracles, there were practically no non-believers among humans. Even among human slaves, many still had a god they believed in. If Yang Feng wanted to spread his faith among humans, it would be very difficult. The suffering half-blood beast men were his best choice. After the prayer ceremony was completed, the dozens of half-blood beast men present felt as if they had undergone a complete transformation. Their heart, spirit, and spirit were all different. Before this, these half-blood beast men were hopeless existences that couldn't see the light. Now, however, they saw the light of hope. Dick's eyes blossomed with endless anger, and he asked, "Catherine, can you contact the surrounding villages and towns and take them to the city you spoke of?" Catherine smiled and said, "Half-blood beast men who are willing to believe in our Lord are our dearest compatriots and can go to that city." Dick's eyes flashed with worry, and he said, "Since our Lord is so generous and great, I believe that all half-blood beast men will believe in him. But the biggest problem now is the winter hunt. The wolf cavalrymen are just the vanguard of the winter hunt. According to convention, the large-scale winter hunt is about to begin. The winter hunt was when the beastmen of the Beastman Empire would sweep through the Kasama region from time to time during winter. They would plunder the food of half-blood beastmen and capture the beauties of half-blood beastmen for their own enjoyment or directly sell to human slave merchants in exchange for various supplies. The winter hunt wasn't just a matter of the Copper Wolf tribe, but the main force of the entire Beastman Empire. They would hunt in the Kasama region. In front of the main force of the Beastman Empire, all of the half-blood beastmen's resistance would be crushed into powder. Among the half-blood beastmen, there were also ox half-blood beastmen, tiger men half-blood beastmen, lion men half-blood beastmen, and elephant men half-blood beastmen. These half-blood beastmen were born with divine strength, and their battle prowess far exceeded that of ordinary humans. There were also half-blood beastmen who resisted in the Kasama region, but they lacked weapons, cultivation techniques, and various inheritances of knowledge. They simply couldn't resist the attack of the main force of the Beastman Empire. The half-blood beastmen who resisted were slaughtered by the hundreds, and then hundreds more were thrown into the Kasama area, leaving them to fend for themselves. They wouldn't let those half-blood beastmen consume the food of the Beastman Empire. The main force of the Beastman Empire was definitely the existence that all half-blood beastmen hated and feared the most during the winter hunt. When the half-blood beastmen heard this, their eyes revealed worry. Catherine said in a deep voice, "I have a way." All eyes were focused on Catherine, filled with anticipation. Catherine looked around and said in a deep voice, "Before the winter hunt officially starts, the only threat to us is the Copper Wolf tribe. I'll take people to assassinate the chieftain of the Copper Wolf tribe. As long as we assassinate him, the vanguard of the Copper Wolf tribe will collapse without a fight. In this way, we can gain 10 days of time. 10 days is enough for us to contact many tribes. Which brother is willing to go with me to assassinate the chieftain of the Copper Wolf tribe?" "I'm willing." Contrary to everyone's expectations, a person took the lead and said loudly. Gazes focused on that person, revealing looks of surprise. Yang Feng was also very surprised. Because that person was the dog-eared middle-aged man Kun, who had bitterly advised everyone not to kill the 8 wolf cavalrymen. "Ha, I know what you're thinking. My wife and son died tragically at the hands of those beasts. Don't I hate those beasts? It was just that in the past, we didn't have the strength to resist. Now that a god is willing to shelter us, I, Kun, am willing to risk my life for the sake of the half-blood beast men. If I'm lucky enough to survive in the future and arrive at the place where my lord promised my race to rest, then I'll dedicate everything I have to my lord. This is the promise of me, a dog-eared half-blood beast man, half-blood beast man." Kun tore his tattered clothes and forcefully grabbed at them. His chest was immediately dripping with blood, and he cried out hoarsely, "My blood is also hot." Chapter 225. Is this the power of hope? Yang Feng silently looked at the blood on Kun's chest. His rock-hard mind was slightly shaken. "I'm willing to go with you." "Me too." After a moment of silence, none of the 56 half-blood beast men in the room cowered. Regardless of gender or age, they all spoke silently. Catherine made a prompt decision. The number of people needed for the assassination should be few, not many. "Caesar, Khan, Chuck, and I will be going for the assassination. Dick, organize the people and contact the surrounding villages and towns. We don't have much time, every minute is precious." Without any quarrel or hesitation, Dick nodded silently. At the border of the Beastman Empire and the Kasama region, there was a small city, the Frozen Rock City. The Frozen Rock City was the bridgehead of the Beastman Empire's winter hunt. This time, as the winter hunt's vanguard, the Copper Wolf tribe was stationed here. As night fell, darkness enveloped the land. Catherine took Yang Feng's group of 3 to the front of the Frozen Rock City. Kun looked at the brightly lit Frozen Rock City from afar, and his eyes flashed with worry. Catherine, what do we do now? It looks like it's heavily guarded. Due to Yang Feng killing part of the vanguard, the defenses inside the Frozen Rock City became much tighter. At the entrance to the city stood 2 teams of fully armed wolfman warriors. Above the Frozen Rock City, teams of werewolf warriors were constantly patrolling, ready to reinforce the warriors below at any time. The entrance to the city was covered in torches. Above the city wall, there was a thick torch at regular intervals, brightly illuminating the city. Catherine's gaze congealed slightly, and she said, "Caesar, you speak." Yang Feng said with a light smile, "Everyone, follow me. Let's kill our way to the headquarters, and then behead the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe." Chuck frowned and said coldly, "That's easy for you to say. We don't even know how many soldiers there are in the Frozen Rock City or where the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe is, so how can we kill them? Besides, how can the 4 of us kill our way in?" Even though he had acknowledged Yang Feng's identity as a divine emissary, Chuck was still very jealous of him. This was mainly because the Beastmen were ignorant and did not know the importance of a divine envoy. If it was in the 4 great empires, no one would dare to be so rude to an oracle sent by a god. The ignorant are fearless. This was the principle. Kun also focused his gaze on Yang Feng, wanting to see what Yang Feng had to say. He didn't think that the 4 of them could break into the city and kill the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe. "This is a treasure given to me by God. A long sword that could cut through any weapon and a full-body armor that could block almost any weapon. And God is watching us. He will guide us to the location of the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe." Yang Feng smiled faintly and flipped his hand, and 2 copper boxes appeared in front of Chuck and Kun. On top of the 2 copper boxes, there was a magic sword forged from divine blood steel. Yang Feng said lightly, "Put your hands on the box, and you'll get the divine warrior armor bestowed upon you by God." Without hesitation, Kun put his hand on the groove on top of the copper box. Bronze-colored magic radiance flickered, and pieces of armor flew out of the copper box and landed on Kun's body, covering every vital part of his body. Only some of his joints were exposed. There were 16 energy grooves on the divine warrior armor, each of which was inlaid with a superior magic stone. An incomparably powerful life mana emanated from the divine warrior armor and entered Kun's body, stimulating his body's potential and causing him to burst forth with aura. Qi. This is the power of Qi. Kun was slightly taken aback, and then his eyes flashed with ecstasy and he praised, "Great God Ian, praise you." Upon seeing this, Chuck also put his hand on the copper box, put on the divine warrior armor, and was stimulated to give birth to Qi. The divine warrior armor looked like it had a lot of components, but in fact, it was extremely light. Each divine warrior armor weighed only 2.5 kilograms and was forged from divine blood steel. Because it was enchanted with lighten, brute strength, inspire courage, and several other spells, it wasn't heavy at all. On the contrary, the wearer would feel as light as a swallow and extremely nimble. These 2 divine warrior armors were the original versions of battle armor that Yang Feng had developed by combining warlock knowledge and Shizu technology. As long as the wearer had a strong enough body, they would possess formidable offensive and defensive power. On the battlefield, they would be just like a humanoid tank. Yang Feng waved his hand, and 2 gold boxes appeared in front of him and Catherine. Catherine reached out and pressed her hand on the groove of the golden chest. Countless golden armor plates flew out of the golden chest and surrounded her, forming a female warrior covered in golden armor. She wore a mask, and her facial features could not be seen clearly. "Follow me." Yang Feng took the lead and stealthily moved towards the section of the Frozen Rock City's city wall. Catherine's group of 3 followed behind Yang Feng. When they reached the edge of the city wall, Yang Feng took a deep breath, tapped his foot on the ground, flew up, and easily landed on top of the city wall. The frozen rock city's city wall was only 6 meters tall. It couldn't stop an expert like Yang Feng. Yang Feng shook his hand, and a rope extended from the top of the city wall. Catherine's group of 3 quickly reached out and grabbed the rope. Yang Feng shook the rope slightly and erupted with Sky Knight rank power in a flash, sending Catherine's group of 3 flying towards the top of the city wall. In midair, Catherine didn't panic. She operated her chi, twisted her tender body slightly, turned her feet to the ground, and stomped on the ground, stopping her forward momentum. Yang Feng's eyes flashed with admiration. He took a step forward and pressed his palms on the abdomen of Chuck and Kun. A gentle force gushed out of his palms and caught the 2 of them. During his time on the Feisua Plain, Yang Feng could only rely on himself most of the time without the terrifying battle prowess of his mechanical legion. He forced out his potential. If Yang Feng had just left the Tyrannid subcontinent, it wouldn't have been an issue to slap Chuck and Kun into mincemeat. However, he definitely wouldn't have been able to use his strength so effortlessly. Originally, Yang Feng was just an ordinary warlock who had accumulated all kinds of rare resources and elixirs. But now, after his tempering on the Feisua Plain, he could feel himself constantly transforming, becoming stronger, and grasping various knowledge more flexibly. When Chuck and Kun landed, they heaved a long sigh of relief. Yang Feng reached out with his hand, lifted Chuck and Kun, and jumped down from the top of the city wall. Catherine also jumped down from the top of the city wall. Once they entered the frozen rock city, the 4 people formed a battle formation. Yang Feng was at the forefront of the formation, Chuck and Kun protected his flanks, and Catherine was in the rear, bringing up the rear. Without hesitation, Yang Feng took the 3 people and plunged into the frozen rock city. Inside the frozen rock city, Yang Feng, as if aided by a god, avoided one squad of Beastman patrol warriors after another, leaving Chuck and Kun full of admiration. They truly believed that Yang Feng had the guidance of a god. There was a small castle in the center of the frozen rock city, which was the city master's mansion. Since the frozen rock city was the bridgehead for attacking the Kasama region, half-blood beastmen would from time to time find ways to attack the frozen rock city and assassinate its high-ranking officers. Therefore, the city master's mansion was transformed into a small castle. The small castle's city wall was 7 meters tall. The city wall was brightly lit, and teams of wolfman warriors exuding an iron-blooded temperament were patrolling. The small castle was guarded by the trusted subordinates of the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe. They were valiant warriors who had gone through countless battles, and each of them possessed formidable battle prowess not weaker than human knights. "Follow me." Yang Feng's eyes flashed with a scorching glint. His figure shook, and he took the lead, rushing towards the entrance of the small castle like a humanoid tank. "Charge!" Catherine ordered. Kun and Chuck looked at each other, then gritted their teeth and followed behind Yang Feng, rushing towards the small castle. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Atop the city wall, a wolfman warrior saw Yang Feng dressed in a golden armor at a glance, and he faced upwards and issued a shrill howl. As expected of elites, the werewolf warriors on the castle quickly made their preparations. 20 archers of the Copper Wolf tribe immediately stepped out and shot at Yang Feng. The 20 arrows turned into a rain of arrows and shot towards Yang Feng. Dang! Dang! Amid crisp sounds, the 3 arrows that hit Yang Feng's gold armor were ricocheted away. Braving the rain of arrows, Yang Feng rushed to in front of the gate of the castle. The magic sword forged from divine blood steel in his hand flickered with sword light, and he slashed the castle a dozen times in a row. Break! Yang Feng gave a furious roar and punched the gate of the castle. Boom! With a loud bang, the city gate was instantly torn into pieces, and countless fragments flew in all directions. The gate is broken. The gate is broken just like that. Kun and Chuck were dumbstruck, hardly daring to believe their eyes. Yes! If we follow him, we might really be able to kill the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe. Next, hot blood welled up in the hearts of Kun and Chuck, and they were filled with hope. Catherine's beautiful eyes flickered with an extraordinary splendor, and she looked at Yang Feng's back full of worship, as expected of Master Ian. Chapter 226. Breached. The gate was breached. Fuck. How could the gate be breached just like that? When the Wolfman warriors saw the gate breached, they were dumbstruck, not daring to believe their eyes. Yang Feng's group of 4 took the opportunity to rush into the castle and madly rush towards the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe. Block them! Block them! A guard leader roared loudly and rushed towards Yang Feng's group of 4 with 50 Wolfman warriors. Yang Feng rushed towards the guard leader and slashed at him with a resplendent sword ray. The guard leader bellowed, and Earth Knight rank chi erupted from him in a flash. The fine steel sword infused with chi flicked at Yang Feng's sword. Ding! Under the horrified gaze of the guard leader, the fine steel sword in his hand broke into 2. The sword ray slashed down and instantly sliced the guard leader in 2. After slaying the guard leader, sword rays flashed around Yang Feng, and the Wolfman warriors near him were sliced in 2 along with their armor. Kun and Chuck, who were responsible for guarding Yang Feng's flanks, although they didn't know martial arts, but relying on the sharp magic swords and the divine warrior armor with astonishing defensive strength, they withstood the attacks of the Wolfman warriors and killed the Wolfman warriors one after another. Catherine also madly brandished the ruler's sword and killed the Wolfman warriors one after another. Blood spattered all over her, yet she didn't waver. Amidst the frantic fighting, she gained a deeper understanding of the Lion King battle scripture that Yang Feng imparted to her. As if a sharp knife cutting through tofu, Yang Feng led the 3 people to easily cut through the 50 Wolfman elite warriors, and then rushed towards the room where the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe was located. Along the way, there were no more organized troops blocking in front of Yang Feng. After killing a dozen guards in a row, Yang Feng's group of 4 rushed into a room. Inside the room, on the carpet, there were 4 naked corpses of half-blood beast-man girls. Each of the 4 half-blood beast-man girls was very beautiful, and they were only 15 or 16 years old. In the room stood a middle-aged wolfman with a pair of wolf ears, a furry wolf tail on his butt, a medium build, a face as if carved by a knife, and a cold and cruel temperament. Standing in the middle of the room with a blood-stained scimitar in his hand, the middle-aged wolfman stared coldly at Yang Feng's group of 4. That wolfman race man did not panic in the face of danger and said very calmly, "The 4 of you, how dare you? Do you know who I am? I am Ahriman, the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe. A hereditary baron of the Orc Empire. If you dare to kill me, the Orc Empire will never stop hunting you down. Who sent you to assassinate me? I can pay you double the amount you paid. No, I'll pay you 3 times the amount, and then go kill the person who sent you. Kill him, and I can promote you in the Orc Empire, make you aristocratic barons of the Orc Empire, and give you hereditary fiefs and great wealth." On the Feisua plain, aristocratic titles and hereditary fiefs were things that many people yearned to obtain. Many martial path powerhouses and formidable wizards would serve human empires for aristocratic titles and hereditary fiefs. Martial path powerhouses had tyrannical strength and didn't have to worry about food and clothing. However, their next generation might not be able to learn their martial arts. Aristocratic titles and hereditary fiefs were the foundation of a family's inheritance and wealth. Unfortunately, I only want your head. Yang Feng's gaze swept past the naked corpses of the half-blood beast-man girls, and his gaze became extremely frigid. His figure shook, and he strangely appeared in front of Ahriman and slashed at him with his sword. "A bunch of clowns, I just don't want to waste my strength. Since you're courting death, then I'll send you on your way." Ahriman snorted coldly. In a flash, frightening Firmament Knight rank chi erupted from him, and he took a step forward and slashed at Yang Feng with a tyrannical blade. In the Orc Empire, the law of the jungle prevailed. For Ahriman, who respected the strong, to be able to become the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe, he was extremely powerful. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to suppress the pack of wolf cubs in the tribe. Ding! The blade and sword collided, and the fine steel blade in Ahriman's hand broke into 2. Yang Feng's magic sword slashed down, and Ahriman's head was sent flying. The moment Ahriman's head was sent flying, his eyes flickered with incredulity, as if he couldn't believe that he was insta-killed by a sword. Your martial path strength might be good, but unfortunately, your weapon is too poor. Yang Feng grabbed Ahriman's head, who died with everlasting regret, and said faintly. Extremely hot blood spurted out of Ahriman's chest. Before it came into contact with Yang Feng, it was bounced off by the life force field protecting him. In real combat, weapons and equipment were extremely important, and could even play a decisive role. Ahriman's martial path strength might be even stronger than Yang Feng's, but he was insta-killed by Yang Feng, because he didn't know that the magic sword forged from divine blood steel in Yang Feng's hand was actually so sharp. A powerful weapon could instantly increase a martial artist's battle prowess by several times. This was also the reason why Yang Feng's 5 magic swords could be auctioned at sky-high prices. Kun's eyes flowed with tears, and he sobbed uncontrollably. Formidable faith power diffused from him. We actually did it. We actually assassinated the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe. This is a miracle bestowed upon us by the gods. Praise you, mighty god Ian. Praise you. Yang Feng felt the faith power coming from Kun, and was slightly surprised. True believer. Not bad, I really couldn't tell that this Kun was a good seedling. Yang Feng took out a spear, inserted Ahriman's severed head on it and strode outside. Ahriman is dead. The frozen rock city has been captured. Yang Feng had Kun carry Ahriman's severed head, and shouted when he saw people. When the Wolfman warriors saw Ahriman's severed head, their morale began to collapse, and they became polarized. Eyes bloodshot, some Wolfman warriors madly rushed at Yang Feng and company, before being killed by Yang Feng and Catherine. Even more werewolf soldiers broke down and fled the city lord's manor. Yang Feng and company killed their way to the city master's mansion's prison. Catherine took the lead. After killing a dozen-plus Wolfman warriors, she broke into the prison. I am Catherine, a divine chosen sent by the mighty god Ian to rescue us half-blood beast men. I am a lion man half-blood beast man. I'm here to rescue you. Anyone who is willing to believe in my lord, the mighty god Ian, can be redeemed. Who is willing to believe in my lord, Ian? As soon as Catherine broke into the prison, the gold visor fell off, revealing her heroic and beautiful appearance as well as lion man half-blood beast man characteristics. Shrouded in a layer of sacred light, she shouted. I am willing to believe in the mighty god Ian, save me. I am also willing to believe in the mighty god Ian, save me. In the prison, there were hundreds of handsome young men and women who were captured by the Copper Wolf tribe. When the young men and women in the cages saw Catherine shrouded in a layer of sacred light, as if they had seen a god, the young men and women wept and pleaded. Yang Feng's group of 3 stepped forward, slashed open the cages with their swords, and liberated the hundreds of half-blood beast men inside the cages. Catherine said solemnly, pick up the weapons you can and follow behind us. You need to protect your own lives. The hundreds of half-blood beastman youngsters silently picked up the weapons of the slain prison guards, and then followed behind Catherine. Yang Feng said, let's go to the granary. Once we burn the granary, we can leave. Catherine nodded slightly, then turned to the half-blood beastman youngsters and said, follow behind us. The half-blood beastman youngsters silently followed behind Catherine. Under Yang Feng's lead, the group of people killed their way towards the granary of the frozen rock city. Along the way, the Wolfman warriors who stuck their heads out were chopped into pieces by Yang Feng. The half-blood beastman youngsters went up and picked up their weapons. You really came. I guessed that your next target would be the granary of the frozen rock city. You lowly half-blood beastman bastards. When you see Uncle Randy, why aren't you on your knees? Do you want to die? Suddenly, a group of 200 wolf cavalrymen armed to the teeth rushed out of the granary. The arrogant and tall wolfman expert in the lead glared at the hundreds of half-blood beastman youngsters and bellowed. In a flash, frightening Sky Knight rank chi gushed out of him. Under the pressure of the Sky Knight rank expert, the half-blood beastman youngsters revealed looks of fear. Sky Knight rank experts had already stepped into the ranks of extraordinary life forms. There was an essential gap between them and ordinary life forms. Their imposing manner wasn't something that ordinary people could resist. Randy, I have killed Chief Ahriman of the Copper Wolf tribe. His head is here. If you surrender now, it's not too late. Otherwise, only death will await you. Yang Feng lifted Ahriman's head, shook it at the Copper Wolf tribe's cavalrymen, and shouted loudly. Chief Ahriman's head. Is Chief Ahriman really dead? When the wolf cavalrymen of the Copper Wolf tribe saw Ahriman's head, their hearts shook at once. Ahriman, who possessed the strength of a firmament knight, was the #1 expert of the Copper Wolf tribe. For such an expert to die tragically at Yang Feng's hands, Yang Feng's strength could well be imagined. Taking advantage of the Copper Wolf tribe's wolf cavalrymen's shock, Yang Feng blurred into motion and rushed towards them. Go to hell. The Copper Wolf tribe's wolf cavalrymen were extremely ferocious. 2 wolf cavalrymen slashed at Yang Feng. Without dodging, Yang Feng rammed into them like a humanoid demonic beast. Ding! When the 2 fine steel blades slashed at Yang Feng's gold armor, they were ricocheted away. The perlicues of the 2 wolf cavalrymen trembled, and the 2 fine steel blades flew out of their hands. With flashes of sword rays and surging of chi, the 2 wolf cavalrymen were instantly shaken into countless pieces of flesh and blood that splashed about. Amid the mist of blood, Yang Feng appeared in front of Randy and slashed at him with his sword. Randy's complexion changed dramatically. Although he still had more than 100 subordinates around him, but at this moment, he was the only one facing Yang Feng's tyrannical sword strike. Randy mustered his chi, bellowed, and raised his sword at Yang Feng's sword. As long as he could block this sword strike, the wolf cavalrymen around him could swarm Yang Feng and cut him into pieces. Ding! Under Randy's horrified gaze, his sword was cut in 2 as if tofu. The sword ray slid along his neck, and his head flew high into the air. A large amount of blood gushed out of his headless corpse and scattered in all directions. In the midst of the wolf cavalrymen, Yang Feng erupted with firmament knight rank chi and roared into the sky, I killed Randy. Which one of you wants to die? Dumbfounded, the wolf cavalrymen couldn't believe their eyes. At the same time, intimidated by Yang Feng's imposing manner, they didn't act rashly for a moment. Yang Feng's blood boiled and divine energy of massacre surged. Sword rays flashed in his hand, and sword rays extended into the surroundings. In the wake of the sword rays, wolf cavalrymen were torn apart and turned into countless pieces. Under Yang Feng's frenzied slaughter, the wolf cavalrymen began to divide. Some wolf cavalrymen angrily rushed at Yang Feng, wanting to avenge Randy. Even more wolf cavalrymen lost their courage and dispersed. After killing dozens of wolf cavalrymen in a row, there were no more wolf cavalrymen left in front of the granary. Only Yang Feng remained, standing proudly in the midst of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. So strong! So strong! Sir Caesar is so strong. Can we half-blood beast men also give birth to such an expert? This scene was imprinted in the eyes of the half-blood beast man youngsters, and their hearts were filled with shock. Kun gazed at Yang Feng's back, his heart surged, and his eyes flashed with fanaticism. Divine emissary Caesar is really strong. Only such an expert can be called a divine emissary. There's finally hope for us half-blood beast men. Chapter 227. Yang Feng treaded on the blood-stained road and arrived in front of the frozen rock city's granary. With the flash of a sword ray, the gate of the granary made of steel collapsed into countless pieces, revealing large tracts of grain inside. When the half-blood beastman youngsters saw the large tracts of grain inside the granary, their eyes practically glowed green, and they swallowed their saliva several times. The living environment in the Kasama region was extremely harsh. The half-blood beastman youngsters basically only had some sour berries, wild vegetables, and some edible roots to barely fill their stomachs. It was the first time they had seen so much grain. Kun said with some reluctance, somewhat respectful, Sir Caesar, can't we find a way to transport this grain back? Catherine's big, expressive eyes also stared straight at Yang Feng. Yes. Take it back. The half-blood beastman youngsters also spoke one after another. Yang Feng said faintly, "No, we don't have that much time. Let me tell you another piece of bad news. According to the oracle of the mighty god Ian, the Bloody Lion monarch Lawrence is already on his way here with 20,000 elites of the Bloody Lion slave hunting group." Kun's complexion changed greatly, his eyes flashed with fear, and he said in a trembling voice, "Lawrence. It's that fiend." Catherine's beautiful eyes were filled with endless anger. At the same time, fear shrouded the abyss of her beautiful eyes. "Lawrence, that bastard. He's here. Lawrence. That fiend is here. It's actually that fiend." The faces of the half-blood beastman youngsters were drained of blood, their bodies trembled, and their eyes were filled with fear. The Blood Lion monarch Lawrence was the uncle of the current emperor of the Beastman Empire, and he was conferred the title of Grand Prince. He was extremely cruel and had presided over winter hunts against half-blood beastmen several times. Others presided over winter hunts and would release water to raise fish, so they wouldn't kill people indiscriminately in the Kasama region. As for the Blood Lion monarch Lawrence, he was extremely cruel and vicious. At that time, he slaughtered all the resistance forces in the Kasama district, including those who surrendered, and massacred the villages where the half-blood beastman resistance forces had been active. Even the beastman villages that did not participate in the rebellion were massacred indiscriminately, making the people of the Kasama district tremble in fear and hate them endlessly. Yang Feng said solemnly, "Only by burning the food can we stop their advance. Otherwise, they will only continue to hunt us down for food." Kathleen nodded silently. Yang Feng took out an oil can, poured kerosene on the grain in the granary, lit a torch, and threw it into the granary. The flames immediately rose up in the granary, and the tongue of fire quickly spread across the granary. "The granary is on fire. It's over. What should we do? Lord Ahriman seems to have been killed. What should we do now?" Within the frozen rock city, the werewolf troops fell into chaos. After Ahriman was killed, there was no one else in the Copper Wolf tribe who could convince the masses. When some ambitious experts of the Copper Wolf tribe saw the flames rising in the granary, they knew that they couldn't continue. They immediately led their troops to escape from the frozen rock city and fled towards the Copper Wolf tribe. Whoever could escape to the Copper Wolf tribe first would gain a huge advantage. Yang Feng took the hundreds of half-blood beastman youngsters to the armory and opened the door. After everyone picked up a few weapons, they swaggered out of the frozen rock city. In front of the nameless village where Catherine lived. Standing at the gate of the village, Dick looked in the direction of the frozen rock city from time to time, his eyes filled with anxiety. Was I too impulsive? 4 people want to go to the frozen rock city to assassinate the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe. This is simply an impossible miracle. Just the position of the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe is hard to determine. Dick gazed into the distance, the wrinkles on his eyebrows seemed to have increased. He smiled bitterly and sighed, "There's nothing we can do about it. Even if it's a life-saving straw, we have to firmly grasp it. We have no way out." A middle-aged man with a pair of cat ears and an aged face slowly walked over and said with a bitter smile, "Yes, Dick, we have no way out. All we can do now is pray to the great god Ian to bless them. 4 people going to assassinate the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe in the heavily defended frozen rock city sounded like a fairy tale. After the half-blood beast men calmed down from their excitement, it was normal for them to be worried. Dick asked, "Burrow, how is it? How did the villagers react?" Burrow smiled bitterly and said, "They basically agreed to go with us. However, there's a precondition. If Sir Caesar can assassinate the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe, then they'll go with us. If not, then they'll just do what they did in the past, try to find a place to hide, resign themselves to fate, and pray that they can escape the winter hunt." The half-blood beastmen's resistance to the winter hunt was just to find a place to hide, resign themselves to fate, and try to avoid the winter hunt. After all, the time for the winter hunt organized by the Beastman Empire was limited. After catching a certain number of beastmen, they would withdraw from this place. It was also a huge cost to feed the 10,000 to 20,000 elite troops. It was impossible for the Beastman Empire's army to stay in such a barren area like the Kasama district for a long time. Dick suddenly asked, why did Sir Caesar assassinate the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe instead of Catherine? Burrow said flatly, we watched Catherine grow up. Don't we know how strong she is? Even if she received the guidance of the gods, it's absolutely impossible for her to have the strength to assassinate the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe. Dick was silent for a moment, then gave a long sigh and nodded slightly. That's... Someone is approaching our village. Burrow's expression suddenly tightened. He stared into the distance and his eyes flashed with a sharp glint as he said, I'll go back to the village and have everyone hide. No. No need. It's Caesar, it's Sir Caesar, they're back alive. My son, Chuck, is alive. Thank God. He's finally alive. Dick's eyes widened, his body trembled, and his speech became somewhat incoherent. Tears of excitement flowed down from his eyes. Haha. They're back alive. Haha. I'll go back and tell everyone the good news. I'll go back and tell everyone the good news. Burrow was also incoherent with excitement. As if he had turned into a young man, he rushed into the village. Sir Caesar is back. Sir Caesar and them are back alive. Everyone, come out. Sir Caesar and them are back alive. As soon as Burrow rushed into the village, he shouted loudly. What, Sir Caesar and them are back alive? They're back alive? In other words, they assassinated the chief of the Copper Wolf tribe? More than 100 half-blood beast men poured out of the village, many of which were representatives of other villages. These days, they felt like a year in the village. Now that they heard the news of Yang Feng's party, they were extremely excited and rushed out of the village. When the half-blood beast men rushed to the entrance of the village, they saw Yang Feng and Catherine walking side by side, followed by Kun and Chuck, and followed by hundreds of armed half-blood beast man youngsters. Kun raised the spear with Ahriman's severed head high and shouted, We're back. Sir Caesar has killed Chief Ahriman of the Copper Wolf tribe. This is his severed head. Long live the great god Ian. Long live the great Sir Caesar. They did it. They actually did it. They killed him. They actually killed Chief Ahriman of the Copper Wolf tribe. This is a miracle. Only with the guidance of a god can such a miracle be realized. There's finally hope for us half-blood beast men. When the half-blood beast men saw the spear with Ahriman's severed head, tears of excitement immediately streamed down their cheeks. Long live the great god Ian. Long live the great Sir Caesar. Long live the great god Ian. Long live the great Sir Caesar. Bursts of cheers came from the crowd. Yang Feng could clearly perceive traces of faith power diffusing from the half-blood beast men, and then being absorbed and condensed by the idols he created. Dick slowly walked up to Yang Feng, prostrated himself on the ground, tears streaming down his face, yet said solemnly, Great divine emissary Sir Caesar, thank you very much for bringing hope to us half-blood beast men. Countless tears flowed down from the eyes of the half-blood beast men. The more than 100 half-blood beast men came up to Yang Feng, prostrated themselves on the ground, and expressed their most sincere gratitude with tears streaming down their cheeks. For countless years, the suffering race of half-blood beast men had never seen hope. Even when the half-blood beastman resistance army appeared, they were easily suppressed by the Beastman Empire and human slave hunters. Now, a god dispatched a divine emissary. Almost miraculously, a trifling 4 people assassinated Chief Ahriman of the Copper Wolf tribe, who was in the frozen rock city and was guarded by several thousand wolfman warriors. This finally gave the half-blood beastmen a glimmer of hope. When the half-blood beastman youngsters saw this, tears streamed down their cheeks, and they prostrated themselves on the ground in front of Yang Feng. Chuck hesitated for a moment, then finally sighed slightly and prostrated himself on the ground in front of Yang Feng, no longer having any thoughts of competing with Yang Feng. In the battle to assassinate Ahriman, he had already witnessed Yang Feng's mystical abilities and formidable strength. Such a person was not someone he could compare to. He was also a half-blood beast man, and he longed for the freedom and dignity of half-blood beast men. Chapter 228. As long as you are willing to piously believe in the great god Ian, then the great god Ian will bless you just like this. Yang Feng pointed with his finger and cast the level 1 spell Divine Illumination. A heartwarming sacred light suddenly appeared and enveloped everyone present, warming them up slightly. Yang Feng then flicked his finger, and a large amount of super recovery elixirs made from a combination of alchemy and Shizu technology turned into a fine mist that mixed with the sacred light. Under the effect of the super recovery elixirs, the half-blood beast men only felt a burst of warmth, and then became more relaxed. Many people were pleasantly surprised to find that many of their internal injuries had disappeared. Healing divine spells were a must-have divine spells for churches to preach. Only with healing theurgy could churches develop rapidly and gain more believers. As Yang Feng wasn't a god, he could only simulate the effects of healing divine spells through the combination of alchemy and Shizu technology. Many half-blood beast men were shedding tears of happiness under the holy light. This was the first time they had been healed by a divine spell and the first time they felt the power of a god. Now, I will teach you the first tome of the radiant battle text that the god Ian wanted me to teach you. Shrouded in sacred light, Yang Feng began to explain the first tome of the radiant battle text to the half-blood beast men. Originally, Yang Feng intended to have Catherine teach him this martial art. But now that the opportunity was right, he naturally wouldn't let it slip by. The scene was silent. Apart from Yang Feng's voice, there was no other sound. Every half-blood beast man eagerly listened to Yang Feng's every word, full of piety. All half-blood beast men knew how precious martial art knowledge was. Any martial art was a secret of the major races and the foundation of their foothold. No one would teach martial arts to half-blood beast men. The arrow-ridden swordsmanship that Catherine practiced was something that a half-blood beast man's slave paid a great price to secretly learn. Half-blood beast men, who had suffered countless hardships, had a thirst for knowledge that far surpassed that of other races. Yang Feng looked around, and his gaze fell on Kun. Okay. I'll stop here for today. Any half-blood beast man who is willing to believe in the great god Ian can practice this radiant battle text. Kong-in, get up. Kun got up and said respectfully towards Yang Feng, yes, Caesar Darren. Yang Feng handed Kun a knowledge crystal with the radiant battle text recorded on it. This is a knowledge crystal, it contains the next few levels of the radiant battle text. Crush it. Kun crushed the crystal, and the knowledge regarding the radiant battle grimoire entered his mind. After Kun opened his eyes, he became even more respectful and said, "Thank you, Sir Oracle, for teaching me this martial technique." Yang Feng said, "From now on, you and Catherine will master the complete radiant battle text cultivation method. As long as one's strength reaches a certain level and is willing to worship my lord, you can teach them the continuation of this martial skill." Kun's eyes flashed with unswerving determination as he said respectfully, "Yes. Sir Oracle." Yang Feng's eyes flashed with a touch of graveness, and he said solemnly, "Okay, get up." Right now, the most important thing was to immediately contact all the half-blood beast men to carry out the Great Migration. The great god Ian has issued a divine decree. The Bloody Lion monarch Lawrence is already rushing over with 20,000 elite troops of the Bloody Lion slave hunting group. The Bloody Lion monarch Lawrence. It's that fiend. Fuck. Go inform everyone, the fiend is here again. When they heard the name of the Bloody Lion monarch, the complexions of the half-blood beast men changed, their bodies trembled, and their eyes flashed with fear and anger. Under Dick's arrangements, the half-blood beast men from the nearby villages quickly returned to their villages and began to mobilize the half-blood beast men in the villages. The story of Yang Feng's embodiment of Caesar leading 3 people into the frozen rock city and then assassinating Chief Ahriman of the Copper Wolf tribe quickly spread in the Kasama district along with the half-blood beast men from the villages and the half-blood beast man youngsters he rescued. As if a plague, a large number of half-blood beast men rushed over from all directions, gathered into a torrent, and dragged their children towards the bloody wasteland. Before long, more than 100,000 half-blood beast men emerged from the corners of the Kasama region, joined the huge torrent, and headed towards the Red Earth wasteland under Yang Feng's lead. A few days later, Dick found Yang Feng and said with a worried expression, "Sir Caesar, we're almost out of food and water. What do we do?" Some panic has spread among the crowd. "Without new food and water, I'm afraid that the team won't be able to sustain itself." The most frightening thing about the Red Earth wasteland was that there was no food and water. Although the Kasama region was barren, but there were still some berries and water. In the Red Earth wasteland, shrubs were very scarce. As for water, it was even more scarce. With a confident look on his face, Yang Feng got up and said faintly, "I see, let's go. We want food. We want water. Give us some food. I want to drink water." In the huge half-blood beastmen migration team, many half-blood beastmen squeezed in front of Dick's army of half-blood beastman men and pleaded. Due to the haste, many half-blood beastmen only brought some food and water. After a few days, they couldn't hold on any longer. The half-blood beastman warriors could only barely stop the half-blood beastmen from rushing over. Otherwise, it would lead to a huge riot. "Sir Caesar is here. The divine emissary Sir Caesar is here." All of a sudden, exclamations came from the side. The half-blood beastmen's gazes focused on Yang Feng. The noisy half-blood beastmen quieted down at once and focused their longing gazes on Yang Feng. Yang Feng's embodiment of Caesar broke into the frozen rock city and killed Chief Ahriman of the Copper Wolf tribe amidst the heavy defenses. After being spread by word of mouth, Yang Feng's embodiment of Caesar broke into the frozen rock city, insta-killed Chief Ahriman of the Copper Wolf tribe, and killed half of the people in the frozen rock city with his breath. Due to such rumors, the half-blood beast men were both respectful and fearful of Yang Feng. "Sir Divine Emissary, we didn't cause trouble, nor do we want to cause trouble. However, my child hasn't drunk water for 2 days. I just want her to drink some water. I beg of you, be merciful. If there is any punishment, bestow it on me. Let my child go, and don't drive us away." A half-blood beast man with many wrinkles on his face knelt in front of Yang Feng and pleaded bitterly. The half-blood beast man girl, who was about 13 or 14 years old and could be vaguely seen to be a beauty but whose lips were somewhat cracked due to the drought. The half-blood beast man girl knelt in front of Yang Feng and pleaded bitterly. Now that the half-blood beast men were in the Red Earth wasteland, there was no way out. Once they were driven away from the main force, only death would await them. "Sir Divine Emissary, we were wrong, don't drive us away. Sir Divine Emissary, we were wrong. Spare us this time." The half-blood beast men knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Yang Feng, imploring. "Silence." Yang Feng frowned slightly, then erupted with a frightening firmament night rank aura in a flash and barked, suppressing the voices of the half-blood beast men. "You weren't wrong. I promised you that as long as you believed in my Lord would give you preserved fruit, food, and clean water. If I didn't do it, then I would be the one at fault. I'm very sorry, I didn't realize that you were already in such a predicament. I'm sorry. As a divine emissary, I failed in my duty." Yang Feng bowed slightly, saluted the half-blood beast men, and apologized. Under the effect of the level 2 warlock rank secret method, the more than 100,000 half-blood beast men heard Yang Feng's voice. "Now, please come with me. The mighty god Ian has responded to my plea and agreed to show us his power so that we no longer lack food and clean water." Shrouded in sacred light, Yang Feng treaded on air, deviated slightly from the main road, and headed southwest. The half-blood beast men followed behind Yang Feng and headed southwest. After walking for about 1 kilometer, Yang Feng pointed at the ground with the exquisite and luxurious scepter in his hand and said solemnly, "The mighty god Ian said that a water source will appear here to quench the thirst of my believers." Yang Feng's words had just fallen, when a large amount of red dust suddenly rose from the boundless red earth, revealing a huge pond full of water. Seeing this scene, the half-blood beast men were dumbstruck, unable to believe their eyes. Apart from the Rhine River, there was practically no other water source in the Red Earth wasteland. Yet now, with a few words from Yang Feng, a huge pond appeared in front of the half-blood beast men, which was simply a miracle. Yang Feng pointed at the surroundings of the pond with the exquisite and luxurious scepter in his hand and said solemnly, "The mighty god Ian said that a treasure tree will appear here to quench the hunger of my believers." Breadfruit trees grew out of the earth around the pond, matured quickly, and turned into trees full of breadfruits. The dozen or so breadfruits suddenly split open, releasing a fragrance unique to breadfruits that filled the area. Long live the mighty and benevolent god Ian. Shocked by this scene, the half-blood beast men prostrated themselves on the ground and said in unison. Chapter 229. This is the water and food bestowed upon you by the mighty god Ian. Before enjoying the water and food, let us pray. Standing in the void, Yang Feng was shrouded in a sacred radiance. His words became enigmatic, full of mystery and holiness because of the miracle he just displayed. After seeing the miracle displayed by Yang Feng, the confusion in the hearts of the half-blood beast men disappeared, and they were filled with hope for the future. They knelt on the ground, clasped their hands in front of their chests, closed their eyes, and began to recite prayers towards the idols. Mighty Lord Ian, extremely rich faith power diffused from the half-blood beast men and entered the idols. Yang Feng looked at the faith force, and the corners of his mouth rose into a smile. So many true believers. Sure enough, miracles are the fastest way to attract believers. These miracles were naturally small tricks that Yang Feng had prepared beforehand. The pond that appeared out of thin air was a result of Yang Feng transporting the pond's water here, and then covering it with a membrane and a layer of nano-robots resembling red clay. As for the breadfruit trees, they were the breadfruit tree seeds that Yang Feng had treated with spells at the cost of thousands of magic stones. The breadfruit trees could only grow for a day before they withered. However, paying such a huge price in exchange for more than thousands of true believers, Yang Feng still felt that he had made a huge profit. Every once in a while, the gods of the Feisua plain would display some miracles to show their existence in order to expand their influence and gain more faith power. Yang Feng frowned slightly, and his eyes flashed with worry. Unfortunately, the bloody lion monarch Lawrence isn't a simple character. He came so fast. The Frozen Rock City. The Frozen Rock City, which was more than half burned by Yang Feng, had changed greatly. There were huge barracks and tents everywhere. Above the tents, there was a huge banner with a bloody lion embroidered on it. The Bloody Lion Monarch's knights were the elite army commanded by the Bloody Lion Monarch Lawrence. Every single one of the 20,000 Lion King cavalrymen was a member of the Lion tribe. Every single one of them was an expert who had been through hundreds of battles and cultivated Do Chi. The Bloody Lion King Knights were the most powerful elite army in the Orc Empire. In addition to the Bloody Lion King Knights, there were also dozens of troops stationed in the barracks. Each troop had about 300 to 2,000 people. Although the Orc Empire was called an empire, it was actually heavily influenced by the tribal system. The Lion tribe and the Tiger tribe were the two most powerful tribes in the Orc Empire. They could only command those tribes to send troops to fight in all kinds of battles, but they could not truly control the armies of the major tribes. Although the Orc Empire was only one empire, there were also countless internal constraints, which was why it could not obtain more territory. The gods hiding behind the Orc tribes were also unwilling to let the Lion and Tiger tribes gain complete control. If that happened, the number of their believers would plummet, and it wouldn't do them any good. In the center of the Frozen Rock City, inside a huge tent. Who can tell me? Who could sneak into the Frozen Rock City and openly kill Ahriman of the Copper Wolf tribe? A handsome middle-aged man with a head full of golden hair, a pair of lion ears, and a lion tail wrapped around his waist said coldly. He was the Blood Lion King Lawrence, who had a burly figure and a handsome appearance. He glanced at the people below and said coldly. On both sides of the tent stood the generals of the Bloody Lion Monarch as well as the Beastman generals dispatched by the major tribes. The generals were as quiet as cicadas in winter and didn't say a word. Ahriman of the Copper Wolf tribe was assassinated in the heavily guarded Frozen Rock City. This matter had become a laughing stock in the Orc Empire. At the same time, it also hurt the nerves of the Orc Empire, which was why Lawrence rushed here so quickly. The Beastman generals knew that Lawrence must be furious at this moment, so they didn't dare to speak for fear of angering the Demon King. An ominous glint flashed in the eyes of the bloody lion monarch Lawrence, and he said coldly, "Ahriman, that trash, it doesn't matter if he died. But after he died, the provisions of the Frozen Rock City were burned by those damn rebels. It's simply a heinous crime. Pass down my order, have the Copper Wolf tribe hand over all of Ahriman's relatives and execute them." "Yes, Your Highness." An expressionless bloody lion knight responded coldly and then quickly retreated. The many generals of the Orc Empire below immediately shuddered, and they became even more fearful of Lawrence. The depths of their eyes showed a trace of sympathy for the death of a rabbit. After an empire's aristocrat died in battle, his relatives couldn't be protected. Many of the Beastman Empire's generals were full of dissatisfaction with Lawrence. But Lawrence was the Empire's Grand Prince, cruel and bloodthirsty. He had a high status in the Beastman Empire, so naturally, no one dared to rashly offend him. Lawrence coldly swept a fat foxman beastman with a glance and said coldly, "Zaku, what's the current situation of the provisions?" Zaku replied with some trepidation, "Your Highness, the provisions we currently have are only enough for us for 5 days. The subsequent provisions are being transported from the Empire. In about 10 days or so, all the provisions will be in place." The effects of Yang Feng's fire, which burned the provisions the vanguard of the Frozen Rock City had prepared for the slave hunters' army, finally showed. Lawrence said with a cold smile, 10 days. I can't even wait a day. Pass down my order, the Silver Lion tribe will guard the Frozen Rock City. The rest of the tribes will follow me into the Red Earth Wasteland to hunt those half-blood beastman beasts. Zaku's complexion changed greatly, and he hurriedly advised, "Your Highness, you mustn't. The half-blood beast men have been in the Red Earth Wasteland for several days now. We don't have enough provisions. Even if we catch up and defeat them, we won't have any provisions to return." A Wolfman general frowned slightly and stepped forward to advise, "Your Highness, I think what Zaku said makes sense. If we pursue them now, it will be considered a victory. We won't have any provisions to return. Besides, we still have to support the more than 100,000 half-blood beastman slaves. Our current provisions are just a drop in the bucket. Besides, there's also the issue of water. The Red Earth Wasteland is arid and lacks water. It's too dangerous to rashly go there without preparations." Lawrence's eyes flashed coldly, and he said frigidly, "Do you want to disobey a military order? Didn't you hear that this is my order?" The Wolfman general lowered his head and said slowly, "This subordinate wouldn't dare. However, it's too dangerous to rashly break into the Red Earth Wasteland. If we're not careful, our main forces will be wiped out in the Red Earth Wasteland. Your Highness, please reconsider." Lawrence's eyelids didn't twitch, and he said coldly, "Those who disobey orders will be executed. Kill him." A lion man guard standing next to Lawrence instantly erupted with frightening chi comparable to a sky knight. He took a step forward and slashed at the Wolfman general like a meteor. A blade ray flashed. Before the Wolfman general could react, his head, which was full of astonishment, flew high into the air, and a large amount of blood sprayed out of his chest and splashed throughout the camp. When the generals of the Beastman Empire saw this, their eyes flashed with grief and indignation, but they lowered their heads. In front of the Empire's Grand Prince, Lawrence, even if they wanted to resist, they were powerless. Lawrence's eyes flashed with a cruel glint, and he sneered, "Listen up, with the strength of our army, we can stop those half-blood beastman hybrids before they enter the depths of the Red Earth Wasteland. As for provisions and water, you don't have to worry. Since those half-blood beastman hybrids can enter the depths of the Red Earth Wasteland, they must have water and food. Even without water and food, we can drink their blood and eat their flesh. Then, we'll capture those hybrids that dared to provoke the Beastman Empire. Let them know that they were born to be our slaves. When the generals of the Beastman Empire heard that, they felt a chill in their hearts. Although Lawrence's words were very reasonable, but the generals of the Beastman Empire, who considered themselves civilized people, were quite resistant to eating intelligent life forms like half-blood beastmen. But being in the Beastman Empire, they had no choice. Lawrence said coldly, "Do you understand?" The generals of the Beastman Empire responded in unison, "Understood." Lawrence waved his hand and said, "Understood, go execute the order." The generals of the Beastman Empire left and began to assemble their orders. "By the way, my good nephew, Garrix. Do you have anything else to add?" After seeing the generals of the Beastman Empire leave, Lawrence looked at the blonde, blue-eyed, handsome, and imposing young man beside him with a smile that wasn't a smile and provoked. Garrix said with a smile, "My dear uncle, you are the commander of this army. I have no objections." Lawrence said with a smile, "The Frozen Rock City is our path of retreat. Guarding the Frozen Rock City is also a great achievement. Don't worry, I'll leave a few little beauties for you from the half-blood beastman slaves we catch." Garrix was the commander of the Silver Lion tribe. Lawrence deliberately left the Silver Lion tribe in the Frozen Rock City in order to prevent Garrix from making a great achievement. The Beastman Empire valued military merit the most. If Garrix didn't have enough military merit, he wouldn't be able to convince the masses. The reason why Lawrence wanted to personally lead the main force to pursue the half-blood beastmen was to obtain enough military merit and improve his reputation in the Beastman Empire. No generals of the Beastman Empire believed that they couldn't defeat the half-blood beastmen, who had no knowledge, no military force, and no equipment. Pursuing the half-blood beastmen was a feast for dividing wealth and military merit, while guarding the Frozen Rock City was a thankless task. This was the consensus of the generals of the Beastman Empire. Garrix had a smile on his face as if he didn't notice Lawrence's hidden malice. "Thank you for your good intentions," Lawrence said with a satisfied smile. "Garrix, you're getting more and more sensible." Garrix said, "Dear uncle, I still remember that I have something to do. I'll take my leave first." Lawrence didn't care at all. "Then you can leave first." Garrix got up and slowly walked out of the tent. Lawrence stared at his back and sneered, "If you want to share my merit, wait another 20 years. Dear Uncle Lawrence, these half-blood beastmen aren't as simple as you think." After Garrix walked out of the tent, the bright smile on his face faded, and a chill flashed in the abyss of his eyes. You might get a surprise in this hasty pursuit. However, half-blood beastmen are really too weak. It's still too difficult to resist his bloody lion knights. After pondering for a while, Garrix suddenly sighed deeply, looked in the direction of the Red Earth wasteland, and said inwardly, "Caesar, I hope you can give me a surprise. Don't get killed by my uncle so quickly." All the warriors in Lawrence's bloody lion knights were knight-rank powerhouses and above. Great knights were only small leaders. There were also a lot of Earth Knights and Sky Knights, 8 Firmament Knights, and even 2 Star Knights, level 3 warlocks. The Bloody Lion Knights were simply too powerful. No matter how Lawrence tried to go against the flow, they wouldn't be able to escape. No matter how Lawrence acted, the Bloody Lion Knights could crush everything and suppress any resistance. Under Lawrence's order, 20,000 Bloody Lion Knights and 20,000 plus high-ranking officers of the Beastman Empire from various tribes, a total of 40,000 troops, carrying countless provisions and supplies, advanced towards the Red Earth wasteland in a stretch of more than 10 kilometers. As the vanguard, 2,000 elite Bloody Knights riding extraordinary life-form demonic horned lions separated from the main force and chased towards the depths of the Red Earth wasteland. Although Lawrence was cruel, but he was also very proficient in the art of war. The 2,000 elite Bloody Knights riding demonic horned lions were enough to easily defeat the more than 100,000 half-blood beastmen. With his main force following behind, he could easily capture the more than 100,000 half-blood beastmen. In the Red Earth wasteland, Yang Feng's embodiment of Caesar suddenly frowned slightly and said with a cold smile, 2,000 Bloody Lion Knights as the vanguard? Without me, these half-blood beastmen really wouldn't be able to resist. However, it's different now. Yang Feng thought for a while, and then had Catherine summoned. Catherine raised her eyebrows and asked, "Sir Caesar, what's the matter?" The pressure of the more than 100,000 half-blood beast-men on Catherine and the upper echelon of the half-blood beast-men allowed them to grow rapidly. Catherine was well aware that Yang Feng wouldn't look for her for no reason at this juncture. Yang Feng said solemnly, "That mad dog Lawrence has caught up. I'm going to deal with him, so I'll leave this place to you." Chapter 230. Lawrence is here. Catherine's delicate body trembled slightly, and then her beautiful eyes flashed with a touch of determination and confidence, saying, "Sir Caesar, don't worry, leave this to me." Catherine was like a beautiful raw stone that had become resplendent after being polished by the pressure of reality. She was fully capable of becoming the leader of the more than 100,000 half-blood beast men. Yang Feng nodded slightly, then his figure shook and he disappeared. After leaving the half-blood beast-men army for a few kilometers, Yang Feng restored Ian's appearance, jumped lightly onto the magic carpet, and flew towards the 2,000 bloody lion knights. Should I kill them all? Yang Feng pondered seriously as he sat on the magic carpet. With the various extraordinary plant seeds, the Moffin demonic polar bear, and other level, for extraordinary life form rank mechanical battle beasts at his disposal, he could wipe out the 2,000 bloody lion knights. After contemplating repeatedly, the corners of Yang Feng's mouth suddenly rose slightly. "No. I've got a good idea." In the red earth wasteland, 2 streaks of red soil rose and extended from afar. 2,000 elite bloody lion knights riding extraordinary life-form demonic horned lions chased after the half-blood beast men. Extraordinary life-form demonic horned lions were a kind of extraordinary life form. They had a single horn, were a size larger than ordinary lions, and had no fur. Instead, they were covered in black scales. They were ferocious and belligerent extraordinary life forms with fast bursts of speed and could run long distances. Demonic horned lions were extraordinary life forms cultivated by the lion god Arkath when he was still a demigod. He sought out many gods, learned countless knowledge, and then cultivated them. Once a demonic horned lion reached adulthood, it would possess frightening battle prowess comparable to that of a great knight. Naturally, demonic horned lions were far inferior to the many extraordinary life forms cultivated by the Hellions in the Tyrannid subcontinent. However, on the Fesua plain, they were definitely the most tyrannical ground mounts. Many human cavalrymen would be timid when they saw the ferocious demonic horned lions. Before they could display 50% to 60% of their strength, they would be killed by the Lionman cavalrymen riding the demonic horned lions. 2,000 demonic horned lion cavalrymen could charge at 10,000 human cavalrymen, and they had full confidence in defeating them. If the human empires didn't have many wizards and all kinds of weapons, they wouldn't be able to fight the Beastman Empire. The Elven Empire was number 1 in jungle warfare, the Beastmen Empire was number 1 in field warfare, and the human race was number 1 in siege warfare. This was a fact that was publicly acknowledged by the entire continent without any powerhouses above the demigod level participating in the battle. Suddenly, a hurricane rose from the red earth wasteland and swept towards the demonic horned lions. Countless grains of sand and stones rolled. At the same time, a thick fog suddenly appeared and enveloped the 2,000 demonic horned lion cavalrymen. In the fog, one couldn't even see their fingers in front of them. The 2 commanders of the demonic horned lion cavalry were shocked and shouted, "Charge! Hurry up and rush out!" The 2,000 demonic horned lion cavalrymen sped up again and charged forward. Every now and then, a 10-meter-tall boulder will appear in front of the demonic horned lion cavalrymen. When the demonic horned lion cavalrymen galloping at full speed hit the boulder, they will bleed and scream miserably. "Stop! Stop the charge!" The 2 commanders of the demonic horned lion cavalrymen immediately shouted. The demonic horned lion cavalrymen stopped their charge and looked at the boulder blocking in front of them in shock and anger. The commander of the demonic horned lion cavalry said in shock and anger, "Damn it, this is the power of wizards. Damn magicians." In the red earth wasteland, such a strange mist had never been heard of. Obviously, only magic power could cause such a strange change. There's a path here, follow me. The eyes of the commander of the demonic horned lion cavalry suddenly lit up. He vaguely saw a path leading to the outside world, and he said with a smile of excitement. The 2,000 demonic horned lion cavalrymen followed behind the commander and strode towards the path. No one noticed that the eyes of the commander flickered with a trace of absent-mindedness. A mist and a life form dominate trapped the 2,000 demonic horned lion cavalrymen. I'm so strong that I'm afraid of myself. Above the fog, Yang Feng looked at the 2,000 demonic horned lion cavalrymen circling in the magic fog, and the corners of his mouth rose into a smile. However, the consumption is relatively large. For every day that I trap them, I have to consume 100 inferior magic stones. Yang Feng looked at the level 1 secret treasure mist disc placed on a boulder, smiled slightly, and mused. The mist disc could continuously release mist, but it also consumed a lot of energy. For every day that it was released, it would consume the power of 100 inferior magic stones. However, as long as he could trap the 2,000 demonic horned lion cavalrymen and prevent them from pursuing the half-blood beastmen, Yang Feng's goal would be achieved. Otherwise, with their speed, they would soon catch up with the half-blood beastmen and unleash a massacre. A day later, the mist shrouding the 2,000 demonic horned lion cavalrymen slowly dissipated. After the mist dissipated, the spirit of the 2,000 demonic horned lion cavalrymen collapsed, and they collapsed on the ground, gasped for breath, looked exhausted, and gulped down mouthfuls of water. Yang Feng played a little trick in the mist, making the 2,000 demonic horned lion cavalrymen as well as their mounts thirsty. The consumption of water was more than 5 times that of ordinary times. Lawrence led the main force of the Beastman Empire to catch up from the rear. When he saw the 2,000 demonic horned lion cavalrymen collapsed on the ground, Lawrence's complexion changed dramatically, and he shouted at once, "High Priest! Come out!" An old man with a pair of lion ears slowly walked out. He had 9 feathers on his head, and his face was painted with layers of camouflage paint. He looked old, like a pile of wrinkled orange peel that was squeezed into a ball. He was dressed in luxurious clothes and had a pair of lion ears. This old man was Danilo, Lawrence's high priest who had followed him in the army. On the Fesua plain, there were powerful beings with extraordinary power like wizards. The only thing that the Beastman Empire could contend against was the shaman priests who believed in gods. According to the classification of the Tsangji Plain, this high priest Danilo possessed terrifying strength comparable to that of a level 3 warlock. Lawrence pointed at the 2,000 demonic horned lion cavalrymen collapsed on the ground and asked solemnly, "High priest, what's wrong with them?" Danilo silently recited an incantation and pointed at the 2,000 demonic horned lion cavalrymen. Yellow light shrouded the demonic horned lion cavalrymen, and then the demonic horned lion cavalrymen emitted dark gray magic light. Danilo said unhurriedly, "There are magic fluctuations coming from them. They should have been hit by a spell like fog or labyrinth. It seems that there is a powerful wizard behind the half-blood beast men." Lawrence asked with some concern, "Are they going to be okay?" Lawrence was cruel and bloodthirsty, but he also knew that the Bloody Lion Knights were the foundation of his tyrannical and perverse behavior. If the warriors of the Bloody Lion Knights were all dead, his status as a Grand Prince in the Beastman Empire would plummet. Danilo said casually, "It's fine. As long as they are given some water and food, they will soon recover." Lawrence's face darkened slightly and became extremely unsightly. Danilo raised his eyebrows and whispered, "Is there not enough provisions?" Lawrence sighed hatefully, "There is enough provisions, but I underestimated the drought in the Red Earth wasteland. Marching here consumes 3 times more water than marching in ordinary areas. If we can't find a water source, we will have to retreat." The weather in the Red Earth wasteland was dry, and the moisture content in the air was thin. Lawrence didn't have the experience of marching on a large scale in the Red Earth wasteland. According to his experience of marching in ordinary areas, he carried water, but as a result, he was in a dilemma. Danilo said categorically, "Your Highness Grand Prince, don't worry. Don't the over 100,000 half-blood beast men need water to migrate in the Red Earth wasteland? With over 100,000 of them, they will need more water than us. Unless a god helps them, there must be a water source nearby. A bloody lion knight quickly came to Lawrence's side and said with a mixed expression, "Your Highness Grand Prince, this subordinate has an important matter to report." Lawrence said, "What's the matter? Speak." The bloody lion knight said with a look of grief and indignation, "We found a water source in the southwest. But the water source has been poisoned by those damn half-blood beastman bastards. A dozen brothers drank the water, and then were poisoned by those bastards." Lawrence's eyes flashed with ecstasy, and he burst into laughter. "Water source, ha! Sure enough, there's a water source. High Priest Danilo, I'll have to trouble you." Danilo nodded slightly and revealed a smile. Lawrence immediately led the army forward and soon saw a huge pond in front of him. Lawrence took several high-ranking officers and Danilo forward and arrived at the edge of the pond. At the edge of the pond, there were the corpses of a dozen demonic horned lions and their knights. Apparently, after the demonic horned lion knights saw the water source, they couldn't help but drink a few mouthfuls. Danilo arrived next to a knight's corpse, slightly opened its eyelids, and carefully examined it for a while. Then, he cut open the knight's corpse with his claws, licked the black blood inside, and closed his eyes. After a while, he silently recited an incantation, and a grey light enveloped his body and purified the toxins inside him. Danilo said solemnly, "This is molo grass mixed with black bat wings, lizard tails, heart-eroding grass, and a dozen other poisons. It's highly toxic. It's highly toxic. Even a demonic horned lion would be poisoned to death with just a sip of this pool of water." Chapter 231. Lawrence asked anxiously, "Can the priests purify it?" If the priests couldn't purify the toxins in the water, then no matter how unwilling Lawrence was, he could only choose to return home. Otherwise, he would be risking his life and that of tens of thousands of elites of the Beastman Empire. Danilo said lightly, "Yes. However, it will take the power of the entire priests to purify the toxins as soon as possible. Also, no external forces are allowed to disturb us while we are purifying it." Lawrence said solemnly, "All right. High Priest, don't worry, we won't let anyone disturb you while you are casting the spell." 200 apprentice priests, 30 priests, level 1 warlocks, and 5 shaman priests, level 2 warlocks, slowly walked out of the huge army. Under the leadership of the High Priest Danilo, the apprentice priests and official priests began to recite prayers. This was a necessary ritual to cast a large-scale divine spell. Around the pond, 40,000 Beastman Empire's troops stood in front of the priests, guarding them. Just as the attention of the Beastman Empire's troops was focused on the priests, mechanical flying ants that looked almost identical to the red soil stealthily flew out of the red soil, flew to the buckets of clean water, bit through them, and drilled into them. When the mechanical flying ants drilled into the buckets, part of their bodies turned into wood, completely blocking the buckets. No abnormalities could be seen. The great lion god Arkath said that he will purify the water with his divine power, dispel the toxins in the water, and let us be nourished by the water of life. Then, we can move forward and kill all rebels. Danilo pointed at the pond with the scepter in his hand, and a stream of divine power flew out of the scepter and entered the pond. Countless strands of black gas rose from the pond, and under the effect of the divine power, they turned to ashes. Danilo heaved a slight sigh of relief. One more wrinkle appeared on his forehead, and a look of exhaustion flashed past the abyss of his eyes. It was much easier to destroy than to guard. Danilo could also easily poison a pond, but if he wanted to purify it, it would consume a lot of his energy if he did not have the right medicine. Priests could use divine spells to purify all kinds of curses and poisons. Of course, this kind of universal divine spell also consumed a lot of power. If a warlock came to purify the water in this pond, they would look for extraordinary life forms and extraordinary plants that could absorb toxins, or use neutralizing potions to neutralize the toxins. This way, it would not consume much of his strength. This was one of the biggest differences between warlocks and priests. Of course, if a warlock's knowledge wasn't profound enough, they might not be able to find a way to purify this pond. Lawrence stepped forward and asked, "High priest, is it done?" Danilo said indifferently, "We've already purified the water in this pond, so there shouldn't be any problems." But for safety's sake, he had to boil it before drinking it. "Then let the others drink." Lawrence nodded and immediately began to arrange for his subordinates to test the water source of the pond. After a series of tests showed no abnormalities, he had the people boil the water and then drink the water in the pond. As for himself and the 20,000 elite Blood Lion Knights, they drank the water brought from the frozen rock city. After the water source problem was solved, Lawrence arranged for the army to continue the pursuit of the half-blood beast men. A few days later, in the Red Earth wasteland, the half-blood beastman migration army stretched for more than a dozen kilometers. Every half-blood beastman moved somewhat numbly and mechanically. Along the way, Yang Feng performed miracles one after another and provided them with enough water and food. However, the dry climate of the Red Earth wasteland, the unchanging scenery, the pressure from the pursuers of the Beastman Empire, and the unfamiliar environment still left the half-blood beastmen breathless. If it wasn't for the successive miracles and the fact that there was no place to escape in the Red Earth wasteland, the half-blood beastman migration army might have already collapsed. A city. A city. A city appeared. And trees. And trees. There are trees. There are really trees. Suddenly, screams of surprise came from the half-blood beastman migration army. The half-blood beastmen, who were hurrying on with their heads lowered and eyes numb, were startled. They raised their heads and looked ahead. They saw a city wall more than a dozen meters tall with no end in sight appear in front of them. Purification trees were planted around the city. As if an oasis had appeared in the desert, it was a moving sight. "There's really a city. That's our half-blood beastman city. That's our half-blood beastman city. Long live the great god Ian. Great god Ian, praise you." When the half-blood beastmen saw the huge city that appeared in front of them, they were moved to tears. They called out and praised the god Ian. Extremely rich faith power gushed out of them and entered the idol made by Yang Feng. When she saw the huge city, Catherine's nose turned sour, and 2 streams of tears flowed out of her eyes. She mused, "A city, that's our half-blood beastman city. In that city, we half-blood beastmen can live with dignity. Thank you, Master Ian. Thank you." With tears in his eyes, Dick prostrated himself on the ground and said while stressing each syllable, "My Lord Ian, you are really a generous and benevolent god. I'm willing to fight to the death for you. A city. There's really a city that belongs to us half-blood beastmen. My Lord Ian, you are really the embodiment of benevolence and magnanimity. I'm willing to dedicate myself to you." When Kun saw the huge city located in the Red Earth wasteland, tears streamed down his face, and he knelt on the ground. Pure faith power diffused from him. Half-blood beastmen prostrated themselves on the ground with tears streaming down their faces. They recited prayers and praised the god Ian. Powerful and pure faith power diffused from them and entered the idol made by Yang Feng. The corners of Yang Feng's mouth rose slightly, tens of thousands of true believers, 100 fanatics, and 1 saint. Among the more than 100,000 half-blood beast men, Kun, the former cowardly dog half-blood beast man, surprised Yang Feng a little. As for Catherine, she already knew the true face of the god Ian. Although she still worshipped and was grateful to Yang Feng, but she was still just a shallow believer. One of the important reasons why gods lived high above the stars was to maintain a mysterious and powerful image. Otherwise, the faith of mortals would weaken. Tens of thousands of true believers, 100 fanatics, 1 saint, and about 100,000 shallow believers. The quality of these believers was already much higher than that of believers of some small churches. In the Tarandit subcontinent, the reason why the kindred monarch could ascend to godhood was that hundreds of thousands of kindred fanatically worshipped him and prayed for nearly 100 years, gathering a tremendous amount of faith power. With such accumulation, he ignited his divine fire in one fell swoop and promoted to a demigod. While the half-blood beastman believers prayed devoutly, a banner with a bloody lion pattern appeared behind them. The Bloody Lion King, Lawrence, had finally caught up with them from the rear with 40,000 elite soldiers. When Lawrence saw the huge city, his eyes congealed slightly, a cold glint flashed in his eyes, and he said frigidly, "A city? I'm really surprised that there's such a city in a place like the Red Earth Wasteland. These half-blood beastman bastards really have someone supporting them. No wonder they dare to resist us." Lawrence barked, "Cuddy." A beastman general with the cultivation base of a firmament knight took a step forward and responded loudly, "This subordinate is here." Lawrence pointed at the half-blood beastmen prostrating on the ground with his horsewhip and ordered coldly, "Take your troops and disperse those bastards." Cuddy opened his mouth and said with a malevolent smile, "Yes. Your Highness Grand Prince, I will crush the resistance of those bastards." The Bloody Lion slave hunting group. "Lawrence, that fiend Lawrence is here." "It's the Bloody Lion slave hunting group." Shortly after Lawrence appeared with the Beastman Empire's army, screams of horror came from the half-blood beastmen. Panic spread among the half-blood beastmen like a plague. "I'm Caesar. I'm here." Yang Feng stepped out of the crowd, rode his horse, and arrived among the half-blood beastmen. He raised his voice and suppressed the screams of the half-blood beastmen. Seeing Yang Feng arrive, the half-blood beastmen automatically parted and stared at him as if he was the embodiment of a god walking in the secular world. These days, the miracles performed by the legendary god Ian were performed by the divine emissary Yang Feng, which gave Yang Feng a respected status second only to the god Ian among the half-blood beastmen. Yang Feng raised his sword, a sacred radiance shone on him, and barked, "I will take people to attack the damn beastman army. Who is willing to go with me to attack the damn beastmen, cut off their ugly heads, and uphold the glory of the mighty god Ian? I am willing to go with you." Catherine spurred her horse to Yang Feng's side. She put on the gold armor, and her beautiful eyes flickered with determination. Kun spurred his horse over with a solemn expression, "I am willing to go with you." Chuck, who was also dressed in a bronze armor and holding a large blade, came to Yang Feng's side and said, "I am willing to go with you." Chapter 232. I'm willing to go with you. I'm willing to go with you. One after another, half-blood beastmen stepped forward and looked at Yang Feng with solemn expressions. They were half-blood beastmen who had just become true believers not long ago. Even some half-blood beastmen who were just shallow believers silently walked out of the crowd and came to Yang Feng's side. "Dick, stay behind and preside over the situation. Now, everyone, charge with me. For the glory of the mighty god Ian, for the future of us half-blood beastmen. Charge with me." Yang Feng pointed at the headquarters of Lawrence's army with his sword and barked. Catherine brandished the ruler's sword in her hand, and the spell-inspire courage enveloped the thousands of half-blood beastmen. The thousands of half-blood beastmen suddenly felt their blood boil, as if there was nothing they couldn't overcome. They were filled with courage. Then, together with Yang Feng, they madly rushed towards Lawrence's main army. A bunch of mobs. They're just throwing away their lives. I thought that they had some skill, but I overestimated them. In the end, they're just a bunch of ignorant bastards. When Lawrence saw Yang Feng charge towards him with thousands of half-blood beastmen, his eyes revealed a look of contempt, and he sneered and ridiculed. The half-blood beastman generals, who were originally on guard, also revealed looks of contempt at this moment. The priests of the beastman race also showed disdainful smiles. They were battle priests who had fought alongside the army. At a glance, they could tell that the half-blood beastman mobs commanded by Yang Feng could not defeat the beastman elite army. A dog tribe general hurriedly flattered, "Your Highness, a single charge from me would be enough to defeat this motley crew. General Cuddy's strength is more than 10 times that of my army. He'll definitely win a great victory and cut off the heads of those rebellious bastards." Lawrence laughed heartily and said, "Haha. Well said. If Cuddy can't even get rid of these good-for-nothings, then I'll twist off his head myself." When the entire Beastman Empire saw Yang Feng lead the half-blood beastmen to charge, they thought that victory was in their grasp. Cuddy's eyes flickered with a bloodthirsty glint, and he said with a smile of excitement, "A bunch of mobs came to throw away their lives. Let me chop off your heads and earn my military merit." The Orc Empire placed great importance on military achievements. That was why the Orc generals were scrambling to find opportunities for war. In this way, the Orc Empire would naturally have as many experts as there are clouds in the sky. If it weren't for the fact that the human race had powerful mages and that they were extremely strong in defending their cities, they would have long been pressured to the point of suffocation by the orcs. Yang Feng looked at the 5,000 lion-man cavalrymen riding demonic horned lions coming at him, smiled coldly, took out a magic pouch, and pulled on a rope, and a copious amount of purple powder sprayed from the magic pouch, which drifted with the wind and entered the lion-man cavalrymen. When the lion-man cavalrymen came into contact with the purple powder, they felt dizzy and fell from the demonic horned lion's body as if they were drunk with several hundred kilograms of alcohol. The demonic horned lions also swayed slightly and fell limply to the ground. "What is this? How could this be? I'm a heavenly knight. How is this possible?" Cuddy also felt dizzy. His vision blurred and he could no longer see anything clearly. "Enemy general, die!" Yang Feng gave a fierce roar, took a step forward, and beheaded Cuddy with a sword strike. When the thousands of half-blood beast men rushed into the midst of the lion-man cavalrymen, their eyes shot with blood, they brandished their swords and killed the lion-man cavalrymen one after another. An incredulous look on his face, Lawrence cried out, "How could this be?" That was the 5,000 elite warriors of the Bloody Lion Knights. They were all elites of the Empire, and every one of them was at least a knight. Even in the Orc Empire, they were considered the most elite corps. For such powerhouses to be routed in a single clash, it was simply unbelievable. Impossible. How is this possible? The Orc Empire's generals were also dumbstruck, unable to believe their eyes. The 5,000 Bloody Lion Knights could easily wipe out a small human principality. Such a formidable cavalry unit was actually routed in front of Yang Feng's motley crew. It was simply unbelievable. Yang Feng led the thousands of half-blood beast men to kill their way through the 5,000 Bloody Lion Knights, and then charged towards Lawrence's headquarters with an indomitable momentum. Seeing Yang Feng so valiant, and then recalling the inexplicable collapse of the Beastman warriors, the eyes of the Orc Empire's generals flashed with panic. Danilo stepped forward and said slowly, "Don't panic. This is just the magic of the half-blood beastmen. With our priests here, those half-blood beastmen are just a bunch of clowns." "That's right. With the high priest here, it's impossible for us to lose." "Yes. With the high priest here, they're dead for sure. Those bastards are dead for sure." The expressions of the Orc Empire's generals relaxed slightly, and they revealed smiles. Danilo was a great warlock with formidable power. Once he cast a level 3 divine spell, its might was comparable to that of a level 3 warlock cast by a level 3 warlock. Even if his fleshly body and soul were far inferior to that of a level 3 warlock, but with the heavy protection, he could definitely display level 3 warlock rank destructive power in battle. Over the years, the Bloody Lion Knights had fought everywhere and won almost every battle. Danilo and his group of priests could be said to have made great contributions. Pfft! Danilo's words had yet to fall, when the Beastman apprentice priests, with looks of horror on their faces, sprayed black blood containing internal organs from their mouths and spread in all directions. Save! A priest's face suddenly turned black. He had just uttered a word, when he sprayed a mouthful of black blood and fell to the ground. As if they were infected by something, the shaman spat out mouthfuls of black blood one after another before they fell to the ground and died. Danilo's face changed dramatically, and he cried out, "Poisoned! Damn it, when did those half-blood beastman bastards poison us?" Danilo's words had just fallen, when he felt a cramping pain in his abdomen and his internal organs splitting apart. He sprayed a blood clot containing internal organs out of his mouth. Danilo seemed to have thought of something and a trace of despair flashed through his eyes. He reached out to grab Lawrence and shouted, "Lawrence, retreat quickly. This is a trap." Before Danilo could finish speaking, his body swayed, and he fell to the ground, dead. The destructive power of a level 3 divine spell cast by a high priest was comparable to that of a level 3 warlock, but their physique wasn't as strong as that of a warlock. As long as they weren't paying attention, it was very normal for them to be poisoned to death. Lawrence was secretly alarmed, and a black aura welled up in his cheeks. His chest tightened, and he sprayed a large mouthful of blood. At this juncture of life and death, he frantically urged his chi. In a flash, terrifying Star Knight rank chi erupted and forcibly suppressed the poison inside his body. The battle prowess of a Star Knight was comparable to that of a level 3 warlock, and the physique of a Star Knight was only slightly inferior to that of a level 3 warlock, yet it was far superior to Danilo's. At this moment, the level 2 extraordinary life-form demon-horned flame lion Lawrence was riding suddenly went berserk. It madly slammed into the rear, knocked away a dozen high-ranking officers of the Beastman Empire, and rushed towards the depths of the Red Earth wasteland with Lawrence on its back. Lawrence, who had used all his power to suppress the poison inside his body, could only watch helplessly as the demon-horned flame lion pulled him towards the depths of the Red Earth wasteland. The complexions of the generals and knights of the Bloody Lion Knights darkened, and they sprayed black poisonous blood and collapsed to the ground. The complexions of the chiefs from the major tribes darkened as well. After spewing a mouthful of blood, they fell from their mounts. The commander flag representing Lawrence collapsed to the ground with a loud rumble. Lawrence is dead. Yang Feng operated a secret method and roared. In front of the Red Earth wasteland, only his voice reverberated in the area. When the warriors of the Beastman Empire saw the high-ranking officers spurting blood and collapsing to the ground, coupled with the collapse of Lawrence's commander flag, they were at a loss as to what to do. Yang Feng led the thousands of half-blood beastmen into the midst of the Beastman Empire's warriors. As if a god of death, he unscrupulously killed all the warriors in front of him. The commanders of the Beastman Empire's warriors were basically poisoned. They were either dead or disabled, unable to command the battle. The Beastman warriors who bravely tried to resist Yang Feng were chopped in two by him in a face-off. Countless Beastman warriors died miserably. The remaining Beastman warriors finally collapsed and fled towards the rear like an avalanche. Yang Feng, with a force of about 100 cavalrymen, drove the Beastman warriors away as if they were herding a flock of sheep. As long as the Beastman warriors had the slightest intention of sticking together, they would be killed by Yang Feng and his people, forcing them to abandon their helmets and flee in a sorry state. Catherine, with the thousands of injured half-blood Beastman warriors, madly slaughtered the 20,000 Bloody Lion Knights who collapsed to the ground. Virtually all of the 20,000 Bloody Lion Knights were poisoned. But some Sky Knight and above powerhouses, by virtue of their frightening physiques, barely managed to control the poison. Catherine led the thousands of half-blood Beastman warriors and didn't show the slightest bit of mercy. With boundless hatred, they crazily slaughtered the 20,000 Blood Lion Knights. A Bloody Lion Knight with the cultivation base of a Sky Knight shouted with a pale face, "Stop, I surrender." In the Bloody Lion Knights, once they encountered an unstoppable force, they were allowed to surrender. Lawrence was willing to pay a huge price to redeem these loyal subordinates. Chapter 233. I surrender. Stay your hand, I surrender. The warriors of the Blood Lion Cavalry Regiment turned pale as they shouted in humiliation. If it was a head-on battle, they wouldn't fear any enemy. But now that they were poisoned, they could only wait to be slaughtered. They were very unwilling to die like this. When many half-blood beast men heard the Bloody Lion Knights beg for mercy, they hesitated and looked at Catherine. On the Fesua plain, there was an unspoken rule. On the battlefield, if the enemy gave up resistance and was willing to surrender, generally, the other side would take them captive, and then demand a large ransom from the other side. Catherine's eyes flashed with killing intent, and she said coldly, "Kill them all, don't leave a single one alive." These bastards, when killing our compatriots, have they ever listened to the pleas of our compatriots? These bastards will only torture our compatriots more cruelly and take pleasure in it. These bastards don't deserve to live in this world. When the half-blood beast men thought of their miserable past, their eyes turned bloodshot, and they continued to brandish their blades and slashed at the bloody lion knights. "You bastards, you'll die a horrible death. You lowly bastards, I curse you," the bloody lion knights cursed frantically and continuously at the half-blood beast men. The half-blood beast men answered their curses with their blades, beheading the bloody lion knights one after another. The land in front of the city was dyed red with blood, as if hinting that the fate of the city would be accompanied by slaughter and blood in the future. Red dust rose, and the sound of horse hooves came from afar. On the horizon, the figures of Yang Feng and the 100 half-blood beast-man cavalrymen slowly appeared. "Long live Sir Caesar, long live the great god Ian! Long live Sir Caesar, long live the great god Ian!" Deafening cheers erupted from the crowd of half-blood beast men. The half-blood beast men madly shouted the names of Yang Feng's embodiment of Caesar and Ian, and gazes brimming with fanaticism focused on Yang Feng. From the fanatical half-blood beast men, Yang Feng could feel traces of faith power slowly converging on him. That was the power of faith he had obtained when he transformed into Caesar. It's a pity that the education level of these beast men is still a bit low. Calling a god long live was like cursing a god. Looks like I have to teach them a lesson. Shrouded in sacred light, Yang Feng waved at the half-blood beast men with a kind smile on his face. Every time he waved his hand, the crowd of half-beast men would erupt into cheers. The 100 half-blood beast-man cavalrymen following behind Yang Feng held their heads high and accepted the cheers of the crowd with proud expressions on their faces. With a sword in hand, Yang Feng pointed at the city and said loudly, "This city is a miracle created by the mighty god Ian. This is a city that belongs to us half-blood beast men. Let's call it Guando City." In the ancient divine language of the Feisua Plain, Guandu meant half-blood beast man. Guando City was actually called the Orc City. Guando City. Guando City, from today onwards, it will be the city of us half-blood beast men. With tears in their eyes, the half-blood beast men sobbed and shouted loudly. Since the birth of half-blood beast men, there was finally a city that belonged to them. Prior to this, any city on the continent regarded half-blood beast men as slaves. They had almost no foothold. This Guando City was a city that belonged to them, a place where they could gain a foothold, a place where they could live with dignity. "Enter the city." Yang Feng took the lead and spurred his horse towards the city gate. "Enter the city. Enter the city." The half-blood beast men wept tears of joy and shouted joyfully. Following behind Yang Feng, they entered the Guando City in an orderly manner. As soon as they entered the Guando City, the half-blood beast men sized up the city that changed their fate with greedy eyes. So many trees. Those are breadfruit trees. There's a pond there. The ground, it's so strange. The half-blood beast men sized up everything in the city with curious gazes and issued cheerful laughter. After leaving everything to Kun and Dick, Yang Feng and Catherine went to the vicinity of the lake in the Guando City. In a place like the Red Earth Wasteland, every city had to have a lake and plant a lot of extraordinary plants, rain trees, in order to maintain the water content of the city. Otherwise, the city would soon be destroyed due to a lack of water. Yang Feng silently walked on the edge of the lake. Catherine followed behind Yang Feng. The color of her pretty face changed several times, then she clenched her silver teeth and took a few steps forward, saying, "I'm sorry, Sir Caesar. In a moment of impulse, I ordered the bloody knights to be killed. Many of them were planning to surrender. But I couldn't hold back my anger." Yang Feng was silent for a while, then suddenly said with a light smile, "It's nothing. Even if you didn't kill them, I would have ordered you to take people to kill them. We don't have extra food and water to raise them." Catherine heaved a slight sigh of relief. Yang Feng said faintly, "However, I hope that the next time you make such an important decision, you'd better discuss it with me first. If I'm not here, you can deal with it yourself." Catherine's heart shook slightly, and she replied, "Yes." The 20,000 elite Bloody Lion Knights were killed by Catherine. The 20,000 elite soldiers from different tribes lost their food and water in the Red Earth Wasteland. In the end, more than 99% of the soldiers died in the cruel environment of the Red Earth Wasteland. The frozen rock city. A carrier pigeon flew over from afar and eventually landed in Garrix's hand. Garrix glanced at the paper on the carrier pigeon and revealed a smile. Then, the smile slowly faded, and his eyes flashed with graveness. He frowned slightly. "Well done, Caesar. You annihilated Uncle Lawrence's bloody Lion Knights and the 20,000-strong coalition army in one fell swoop. You did an excellent job, giving me a bit of a headache." Garrix suddenly smiled and said in a low voice, "However, I'll leave this headache to Imperial Father. In any case, I'm just an idle prince. Lawrence was a Star Knight rank powerhouse. He forcibly dispelled the toxins inside him with his frightening chi and fled from the Red Earth wasteland back to the Beastman Empire in a sorry state. Lawrence's crushing defeat couldn't be concealed, and the entire Beastman Empire was shaken. 40,000 elite troops were left in the Red Earth wasteland. In particular, the 20,000 Bloody Lion Knights were one of the strongest legions among the Lion Men. Such an army was completely annihilated. Even though Lawrence was a prince of the Empire, he was immediately locked up and thrown into the prison. The Beastman Empire's capital, the Glory City. The Glory City's city wall was 100 meters tall, and huge statues of gods were built at intervals along the city wall. Moreover, there were exquisite murals engraved below the huge statues. The city wall stretched as far as the eye could see. The entire city covered an extremely vast area, not losing out to large cities like St. Colin City in the Tyrannid subcontinent. In the center of the Glory City, there was a magnificent imperial palace. The imperial palace was the Beastman Empire's Glory Imperial Court. In order to enter the Glory Imperial Court, the Lion Men and the Tiger Men, the two major Beastman races, fought endlessly. In this generation, however, the Lion Men won the honor of entering the Glory Imperial Court and wielding the imperial power of the Beastman Empire. In the center of the Glory Imperial Court, inside the Hall of Glory where the various races discussed official business. A burly middle-aged lion race expert with a pair of lion ears and a lion tail wrapped around his waist sat on a golden throne, looking down at the experts below. He had a pair of lion ears and a lion tail wrapped around his waist. He had a square face and big ears, and he wore an imperial robe. He exuded a majestic aura even without being angry. The middle-aged lion man powerhouse was Angurios I, the ruler of the Beastman Empire. The Orc Empire respected the strong. In those days, it was Angurios I who used his iron fists to defeat countless powerhouses of the Lion Men and the Tiger Men. Moreover, he made great contributions and led the Lion Men to enter the Imperial Court of Glory, becoming the real royalty of the Orc Empire. The imperial throne of the Beastman Empire wasn't hereditary. Just because Angurios became the emperor of the Beastman Empire didn't mean that his descendants could become the emperor of the Beastman Empire. Therefore, although Angurios was extremely powerful in the Beastman Empire, but he didn't reach the point where he could cover the sky with one hand. He still had to listen to the opinions of the tribal patriarchs. A burly leopard man powerhouse, with a pair of leopard ears and a leopard tail wrapped around his waist, stepped forward and said loudly, "Your Majesty, I request that you immediately send troops to clean up the half-blood Beastman bandits in the Red Earth wasteland. A single spark can start a prairie fire. The half-blood Beastman bandits must not be allowed to grow stronger. Otherwise, they will only be more difficult to deal with. I'm willing to be the vanguard and behead the traitor Caesar for your Majesty." A jackal powerhouse also stepped forward and shouted, "That's right. Your Majesty, please send troops to encircle the Red Earth wasteland. I'm willing to be the vanguard." A gold wolfman powerhouse with golden wolf fur also stepped forward and said, "Your Majesty, please send troops to encircle the Red Earth wasteland. The gold wolfman is willing to send 1,000 warriors. Your Majesty, send troops." A ferocious-looking beastman officer exuding a valiant aura got up and asked loudly. Only war could show the value of these beastman officers and let them get more spoils of war, merit, reputation, and land. Chapter 234. Angurios I slightly frowned and looked at Foxman Race's Prime Minister, Faulkner, who was standing motionless like a puppet. His gaze was like a knife that nearly pierced Faulkner's body. Seeing that he couldn't avoid it, Faulkner sighed slowly, walked to the center of the hall, and said unhurriedly, "Your Majesty, I don't think we should send troops now." The complexion of the leopard man general changed, and he barked, "Faulkner, you coward, what do you mean? Don't tell me the 40,000 warriors of the Beastman Empire died in vain." The generals of the Beastman Empire also glared at Faulkner. Although Faulkner was the Prime Minister of the Beastman Empire, but he wasn't strong. He only had a knight rank cultivation base. Therefore, in the Beastman Empire where the strong were respected, the military powerhouses looked down on Faulkner, the Foxman Prime Minister. Faulkner, the Prime Minister of the Beastman Empire, didn't have a high status and power like human prime ministers. Some powerful prime ministers could even control the court. If it wasn't for the tradition of Foxman prime ministers in the Beastman Empire and Angurio's eyes' strong promotion, Faulkner wouldn't have been able to sit firmly in the position of prime minister. Faulkner said faintly, "Our grain harvest this year is very poor. Besides, the grain that should have been smuggled into our country has been purchased by the miracle city built by the human wizard Ian in the Red Earth wasteland. Coupled with Ahriman's loss, the frozen rock city has led to the burning of a large amount of grain. Unless we use our strategic grain reserves or have the major tribes donate some grain, we don't have enough grain to carry out a war. General Tiger, do you want our soldiers to go into the Red Earth wasteland to fight the half-blood beastmen with empty stomachs?" Tiger couldn't help but be taken aback. "Is our grain so tight?" The Beastman generals also fell silent. They were all from tribes of the Beastman Empire, large and small. This year's harvest wasn't good to begin with. If the tribes continued to contribute grain, it would undoubtedly force the old and weak of many tribes to death. Faulkner said faintly, "Besides, the geographical location of the Red Earth wasteland determines that it is a place that is easy to defend and difficult to attack. Once we fail, it will be an extravagant hope to come back alive." The Beastman generals also had unsightly expressions on their faces. In the Red Earth wasteland, there was a shortage of water, drought, little rain, and no food. More than 99% of the 20,000-strong tribal coalition army defeated by Yang Feng died of thirst or starvation in the Red Earth wasteland. Even the surviving orcs had gloomy and murderous expressions on their faces. No one dared to ask them how they managed to return alive. Taiga asked with some annoyance, "Then the 40,000 warriors of our orc empire died in vain?" Faulkner replied indifferently, "General Tiger, if you have a way to solve the two problems I've just raised, I'll be willing to help you. In that case, I completely agree with your opinion. We should immediately dispatch troops to exterminate those half-blood beast men." Tiger snorted coldly and said coldly, "The matter of provisions is the business of you civil officials. If we were the ones to solve everything, what would we need you civil officials for?" The generals of the Beastman Empire shouted, "That's right, the problem of provisions is the problem of you civil officials, it should be solved by you." The Orc Empire worshipped strength, and only the strong were respected. Many generals looked down on those civil officials. Unmoved, Faulkner said indifferently, "I'm sorry, but my ability is limited. This is the only thing I can do. If I don't apportion supplies like the major tribes, I really can't conjure up provisions." Taiga pestered endlessly, "I don't care. Since you're the Prime Minister, you have to come up with a solution. Our 40,000 warriors can't die in vain." The generals of the Beastman Empire supported Taiga one after another. The civil officials supported Faulkner one after another. People on both sides quarreled in the reception hall. In the Beastman Empire, the strong were respected, and the generals were the object of envy. As for the civil officials, they were firmly suppressed by the generals. Under Faulkner's leadership, the civil officials had a bit of a better life, so they naturally weren't willing to concede even a little bit. A short werewolf minister walked to the center of the reception hall and proposed, "Your Majesty, how about we invite the Empire's sacred warriors to take action? As long as we invite a sacred warrior to kill the few leading half-blood beast men, such as Caesar, the half-blood beast men force will naturally collapse on its own. We can also take advantage of their chaos to take the opportunity to make a promise." After they disintegrate, we can annihilate these rebels in one fell swoop. Faulkner raised his eyebrows and remained silent. Taiga's eyes flashed with joy, and he loudly praised, "Good. If we invite the Empire's sacred warriors to take action, they will definitely be able to kill those rebels." The other generals of the Beastman Empire also voiced their agreement. Sacred warriors were peerless experts of the Beastman Empire who had cultivated to the legend rank. Each sacred warrior was extremely powerful and had the terrifying strength to take the head of a general in the midst of an army of 10,000. Anguriozai glanced at Faulkner and slightly frowned. His gaze swept past Tiger and the other Beastman generals before falling on a middle-aged man with a tall and sturdy figure, a pair of tiger ears, and a tiger's tail coiled around his waist. The middle-aged man emitted a dignified aura without being angry and was full of the aura of a king. The middle-aged tiger man was the current patriarch of the Tigermen, Kimetsun. He was also Angurioz's strongest competitor in the past. It wasn't easy for Angurios to suppress Kimetsun and finally ascend to the throne. Even so, Kimetsun was the most powerful prince of the Beastman Empire. Anguriozai said indifferently, "In that case, Sir Sacred Warrior Thunderclaw, please make a trip to the Red Earth Wasteland and annihilate those bastards." The court assembly passed the order without any objection. After the court assembly, Anguriozai summoned Faulkner to the imperial study. Anguriozai asked directly, "Faulkner, what are your concerns in the court assembly today?" Faulkner replied respectfully, "Your Majesty, since Caesar was able to defeat His Highness Prince Lawrence and annihilate 40,000 elites of the Beastman Empire, he's definitely not a simple figure. He was definitely not a simple character. The martial sage Lord Thunderclaw might not be able to kill this mysterious Caesar. However, as General Taiga said, if the half-blood beastmen are allowed to grow, they will definitely pose a huge threat to our race." Anguriozai was silent for a while, then suddenly said in a low voice, "Can't half-blood beastmen be our compatriots?" Faulkner's complexion changed greatly. He hurriedly lowered his voice and said anxiously, "Your Majesty, you must not mention this in front of others. Half-blood beastman slaves are one of the cornerstones of the Beastman Empire. Once you show a hint of intention, that person will never let go of this opportunity." The Beastman Empire was full of half-blood beastman slaves. Almost many families had half-blood beastman slaves. The entire beastman class enjoyed the benefits of half-blood beastman slaves. Even though Angurios was the emperor of the Beastman Empire and had a lofty status, but once he touched this volcanic crater, he might be overturned and blown to pieces. Anguriozai was silent for a while, then nodded slightly. His eyes flickered with a bright light. There was no longer a trace of confusion, but a domineering expression, "I understand. All existences that pose a threat to our race must be eradicated. Since Caesar is very mysterious, then send Thunderclaw, Tyrannical Blade, and King Kong, the three sacred warriors to the Red Earth Wasteland." With three sacred warriors joining forces, even if Caesar is also a sacred warrior, he will still die. Faulkner said with a gratified smile, "Your Majesty is wise." In the territory of the Beastman Empire, under a huge waterfall sat a burly man with a head full of blonde hair, a pair of lion ears, and a lion tail wrapped around his waist. Suddenly, the blonde lion man opened his eyes in an instant. With a fierce roar, countless lightning bolts revolved around him, and he punched the waterfall. Boom! Surrounded by lightning bolts, the 100-meter-tall waterfall instantly flowed in reverse. Due to the formidable force, countless splashes of water rolled back and exposed the rock walls. 5 seconds later, the reverse flow of the waterfall finally came crashing down. A wave of battle chi erupted from the golden-haired lionman's body, forming a battle chi barrier. When the countercurrent waterfall smashed against the battle chi barrier, it bounced off. A lionman powerhouse quickly arrived in front of Thunderclaw, knelt on one knee, and said respectfully, "Sir Thunderclaw, His Majesty has ordered you to go to the Red Earth Wasteland with Sir Tyrannical Blade and Sir King Kong to kill the rebel Caesar and the upper echelon of the half-blood beastmen." Sacred warriors were legend-rank powerhouses. In many planes, legend-rank powerhouses were among the strongest powerhouses, and were practically unfettered. However, it was different on the Feisua Plain. On the Feisua Plain, apart from the aloof gods, even legend-ranked powerhouses were basically under the control of powerful empires. Of course, every powerful empire would enshrine legend-ranked powerhouses and give them a special status. Only at certain critical times would they be asked to take action. However, there were also some legend-ranked powerhouses who, for the sake of power and wealth, would become hired thugs of powerful forces. After all, even legend-ranked powerhouses might not be able to resist the temptation of power and wealth. Thunderclaw was one of the legend-ranked powerhouses enshrined in the Beastman Empire. He had a certain amount of freedom. Of course, his power naturally couldn't compare to that of the legend-ranked powerhouses who fully surrendered to the Beastman Empire. Thunderclaw frowned slightly and asked, "Caesar. Who is he? Why haven't I heard of him? Is he a newly born human legend-ranked powerhouse? What's his profession?" The guard promptly replied, "Sir Thunderclaw. Caesar shouldn't be a legend-ranked powerhouse. According to survivors, he should be a half-blood Beastman knight between a firmament knight and a star knight. However, he might also be a wizard. He used magic items on the battlefield." Chapter 235. Fury flashed in Thunderclaw's eyes, and an extremely violent aura spread out from his body. He said coldly, "Angurios, you actually want me to join forces with others to deal with a Star Knight? Are you trying to humiliate me?" As a legend-ranked powerhouse and a sacred warrior of the Beastman Empire, Thunderclaw had his dignity and pride. To have him kill a Star Knight was an insult to his identity. Suppressed by Thunderclaw's aura, the guard suddenly felt breathless. As if a frog being stared at by a viper, he felt a chill run down his spine. He gritted his teeth and said while stressing each syllable, "Caesar set up a vicious trap in the Red Earth wasteland and killed 40,000 soldiers of the Beastman Empire. The Empire is currently unable to deal with him, so we asked you and the other two sacred warriors to kill him together." Thunderclaw was slightly startled and said solemnly, "What a ruthless guy. He killed 40,000 soldiers of the Beastman Empire." Without the interference of magic, the Beastman Empire was recognized as #1 in field warfare. The Beastman Empire generally adopted an offensive stance. Even if they failed, they could calmly retreat by virtue of their powerful mobility. The loss of 40,000 elites was the most disastrous loss the Beastman Empire had suffered in the past 100 years. In that case, I'll go to the Red Earth wasteland and kill him. As for Tyrannical Blade and King Kong, there's no need for them." Thunderclaw snorted coldly. His figure shook, and he flew out of the waterfall and strode outside. The Red Earth wasteland. As Thunderclaw walked in the Red Earth wasteland, the scorching sun fell from the sky and shone on him, making him feel a little irritable. Thunderclaw glanced at the surroundings and sighed, feeling a little irritated. "Damn the Red Earth wasteland, the climate here is really irritating. The scenery is also the same. For someone to be able to build a city in the Red Earth wasteland, that's really amazing." Thunderclaw had been in the Red Earth wasteland for several days. Instead of rushing to the half-blood Beastman city, he advanced unhurriedly, maintaining his strongest state at all times. Although Thunderclaw was arrogant, but he wasn't a fool. He naturally knew that if he rushed to the Guando city, he would be exhausted, and he might fail miserably and be ambushed by Yang Feng. After all, Thunderclaw was only a legendary warrior and did not have as many tricks as a warlock. Extraordinary life forms, extraordinary plants, formidable spells, poisons, potions, secret treasures, golems, tyrannical physical constitution, and frightening spirit force. All of these made up the might of a warlock, far surpassing those of the same rank, and even possessing the power to kill those of a higher rank. Thunderclaw didn't notice that when he passed through an area, a small red stone moved slightly after he left and opened a small hole in it, capturing all his movements. Warning! Warning! Currently, there was a level 4 transcendent being moving towards Guando City. According to the biological characteristics of this life form is a sacred warrior of the Feisua Plains Lionman race, and its melee combat strength is extremely formidable. Hiding in the Guando city, Yang Feng studied the knowledge regarding the promotion to a level 2 warlock to a level 3 warlock. Suddenly, his forehead trembled slightly and the intelligent microchip implanted on his forehead issued a warning. So fast, so decisive. Yang Feng pressed a button beside him, and rays of light shot out from a holographic projector and formed a holographic projection of Thunder Claw's location midair. Yang Feng looked at the sacred warrior Thunder Claw and sighed somewhat regretfully, a sacred warrior of the Beastman Empire. Unfortunately, with my current strength, it's basically impossible for me to defeat him by relying on my own ability. After I promote to a level 3 warlock, I can try out the strength of this world's sacred warriors. No matter what spells a level 2 warlock used, it was practically impossible for them to be the opponent of a sacred warrior in a head-on fight. Yang Feng could use the power of spells to kill a Star Knight, but it was basically impossible to injure a powerful sacred warrior. Once a sacred warrior of the Beastman Empire got close, then even many academic and research-type great warlocks of the Zhangji Plain would be insta-killed by him. The life force field of a great warlock couldn't withstand the bombardment of a sacred warrior rank expert. Yang Feng pondered for a while, and then said faintly, since he's of no value, then let's kill him. The mechanical black dragon hidden under the Guando city opened its eyes. Its eyes shone with a brilliant light, and it exuded an aura of life. Traces of ancient black dragon aura slowly diffused from its body, becoming different from before. This was the mysterious power of a high-grade soul stone. Powerful souls were the favorite treasures of many formidable beings of the major planes. Only with a soul could there be unlimited evolution possibilities. A copious amount of red soil sputtered. The mechanical black dragon flapped its wings, rode a gust of wind, flew out of the ground, turned into a black ray, and flew in the direction of the sacred warrior Thunderclaw. There's a powerful being flying this way. Thunderclaw suddenly looked up at the sky, and his eyes flashed with a dignified glint. Sacred warrior rank powerhouses were equivalent to human great warlock rank powerhouses. Their perception far surpassed that of ordinary people, and was extremely terrifying. When Thunderclaw looked up and saw the mechanical black dragon in the sky, his complexion suddenly changed dramatically, and he exclaimed, "Black dragon! How come there's a black dragon in the Red Earth wasteland?" Dragons also existed on the Feisua plain. They established a country of dragons. The ones who ruled the dragon country were the giant dragons. In the country of dragons, in addition to dragons, there were countless descendants of dragons in various life forms, such as dragonborn, dragon beasts, dragon demons, and other formidable beings. The dragon divine system was an extremely powerful divine system on the Feisua plain. Although the number of gods in the dragon divine system was relatively small, but each of them possessed astonishing battle prowess. As for dragons, every adult dragon possessed battle prowess far exceeding that of ordinary legend rank powerhouses. Therefore, even though every dragon was a treasure and possessed tremendous wealth, but no one dared to go to the country of dragons to slay dragons. However, on the continent, the country of dragons didn't care if the evil dragons expelled by the country of dragons were slaughtered. Therefore, from time to time, there were rumors of dragons being slaughtered on the continent. Thunderclaw looked at the mechanical black dragon flying in the sky, his eyes flashed with a scorching glint, and he licked his lips excitedly. It seems that the fellow behind the half-blood beastmen isn't simple, he can even command a black dragon. However, since I promoted to a sacred warrior, I haven't met an opponent for a long time. This big fellow is just right for me to hone my martial arts. As soon as the mechanical black dragon appeared on the battlefield, it didn't utter any nonsense. It dropped from the sky and pounced towards Thunderclaw. Thunderclaw gave a furious roar, erupted with chi in a flash, strengthened his physique by several times in a split second, and unleashed his self-created martial art Thunderclaw 9 strikes. Thunderclaw roared furiously, erupted with chi, strengthened his physique by several times in a flash, and unleashed his self-created martial art Thunderclaw 9 strikes. The mechanical black dragon erupted with a terrifying life force, and its muscles squirmed. The terrifying power of the Thunder Claw's 9 claws was forcefully neutralized by the Thunder Claw. Thunder Claw was dumbstruck, unable to believe his eyes. How could this be? Is a black dragon actually such a powerful existence? In that instant, the mechanical black dragon ferociously swung its huge tail at Thunder Claw with the force of a mountain. Thunder Claw couldn't avoid it. He clenched his teeth, pushed his chi to the limit, and crossed his arms in front of him. Boom! Along with a frightening explosion, Thunder Claw, like a cannonball, slammed into the ground and blasted open a big hole. Blood spurted out of his facial orifices, looking extremely miserable. Thunder Claw coughed up a big mouthful of blood and said despairingly, "So strong. An adult black dragon was actually this powerful? No wonder no one dares to slay dragons. I was a bit careless." Dragons were a powerful race at the top of the extraordinary life form food chain. Whether it was physical resistance or magic resistance, they were first-class existences. Their strength had been verified by the blood and lives of countless other races. On the Fesua Plain, the dragons that were killed were either slain by demigod-rank powerhouses or besieged and killed by legend-rank squads. There were very few legend-rank powerhouses that could kill dragons one-on-one. Having succeeded in its attack, the mechanical black dragon flapped its wings, rode a gust of wind, opened its bloody maw, and bit at Thunder Claw. "Stop!" With a furious roar, a Tigerman martial saint, Ba Dao, who was missing an ear, unsheathed a long black saber, and with lightning speed, a black saber radiance shot out from the side and slashed at the mechanical black dragon. The invincible black saber beam broke through the mechanical black dragon's dragon scales and cut into its flesh. With a forceful slash, a large amount of red blood sprayed out of the mechanical black dragon's body. The mechanical black dragon was originally a mechanical creation created by Yang Feng using Shizu technology and the ancient black dragon Vedarnia's dragon crystal, dragon bones, dragon scales, dragon tendons, as well as a high-grade soul stone. However, under the effect of the mysterious and unfathomable high-grade soul stone, the mechanical black dragon underwent a change that Yang Feng found hard to understand. It unexpectedly gave birth to flesh and self-awareness, and slowly transformed into a living black dragon. Only then did it possess the blood of a living creature. A 2.5-meter-tall ape-man sacred warrior Vajra, who looked like an ancient ape-man, gave a furious roar, rushed out, erupted with chi, grabbed the tail of the mechanical black dragon, and swung hard. As if a mouse lifting a car, the mechanical black dragon was flung away in a very strange manner. Chapter 236. Thunder Claw lightly jumped up from the ground, operated chi all over his body, and forcibly healed 80% of his injuries, restoring about 70% of his battle prowess. Thunder Claw said somewhat awkwardly, "Tyrannical Blade, King Kong, many thanks. If you hadn't come in time, then I might have already died." Tyrannical Blade didn't waste any words, saying directly, "Let's withdraw. That black dragon is really too strong. Only by dispatching more than 10 sacred warriors, coupled with several legend shaman priests of the temple, would it be possible to get rid of it." King Kong nodded with a dignified expression. Just now, he had forcibly flung the mechanical black dragon away, merely by taking advantage of the fact that the mechanical black dragon was unprepared. Although his strength surpassed that of many Beastman's sacred warriors, but compared to a giant dragon like the mechanical black dragon, he still couldn't compare. The mechanical black dragon flapped its wings, and a gust of wind suddenly erupted, shrouding it and blocking its flight. Its eyes turned, and in a flash, a fierce and terrifying life force erupted from its body. The terrifying life force was already infinitely close to the Starry Sky Warlock rank. Soul Stone. It's the common currency used by experts of the various planes. So that's how it is. Creations with souls have limitless evolution possibilities. Souls are the things that contain the mysteries of immortality. Yang Feng watched the battle from afar through the monitoring equipment. When he saw the changes in the mechanical black dragon, his eyes lit up slightly. In addition to the mechanical black dragon, Yang Feng also used Shizu technology combined with the alchemy he learned in Tyrannid subcontinent to manufacture many mechanical golems with battle prowess comparable to that of level 4 extraordinary life forms. When the mechanical golems were manufactured, their battle prowess was basically fixed. They could only be enhanced by installing all kinds of external equipment. On the other hand, the mechanical black dragon was different. As the mysterious high-quality soul stone had completely fused with its body, it had strangely turned from a pure mechanical creation into a strange existence that was a mixture of machinery and flesh and blood. The preciousness of the soul stone could be well imagined. Yang Feng searched the treasuries of Tyrannid subcontinent's major forces, and found some inferior soul stones, but didn't find a single superior soul stone. In the history of Tyrannid subcontinent, superior soul stones had also appeared. However, as soon as they appeared, they would be taken away and used by great warlock rank experts. Therefore, even if Yang Feng searched the treasuries of the major forces, he still wouldn't be able to find a single superior soul stone. The mechanical black dragon's eyes flashed with a fierce light as it stared at the three martial saints of the Beastman Empire below. Finally, its gaze locked on the Thunder Claw. It flapped its wings and rushed towards the Thunder Claw with a terrifying gale. Idiot! There are 3 of us. Even if it's a giant dragon, it's still just a beast. Thunder Claw roared furiously, erupted with chi all over his body, and lightning revolved around him. He took strange steps, turned into afterimages, and rushed towards the mechanical black dragon. His eyes congealed, and he unsheathed the black blade, poured all his chi into it, and forced out a half-meter-long blade ray that chopped at the wings of the mechanical black dragon. If they cut off the wings of the mechanical black dragon that could fly, they might still have the strength to fight. King Kong roared, erupted with terrifying chi, and sent a fist bearing the weight of a mountain slamming towards the neck of the mechanical black dragon. This fist with all his strength could smash the gate of a city. The mechanical black dragon didn't evade in the slightest. It opened its ferocious maw and bit Thunder Claw lightning fast. Countless sharp teeth pierced Thunder Claw's body, and Thunder Claw was turned into minced meat. At that moment, Tyrant Blade chopped at the wings of the mechanical black dragon, forcibly cutting open a huge gash on the wings, and blood gushed out. At the same time, King Kong's fist slammed into the neck of the mechanical black dragon, causing its neck to tilt slightly. After withstanding the all-out blows of the 2 sacred warriors, the mechanical black dragon flapped its other wing and slammed into Tyrant Blade, breaking his bones and knocking him into the ground. He spat out a large mouthful of blood, seriously injured. Vajra break! The 8-man sacred warrior King Kong roared furiously, urged his chi to the limit, tensed his body, and slammed his fist into the mechanical black dragon. Boom! King Kong's fist smashed the scales of the mechanical black dragon and blasted open a 30-centimeter-long bloody hole on the mechanical black dragon. The mechanical black dragon didn't pay any attention to Vajra. It opened its ferocious maw and bit down on the Tigerman's sacred warrior Ba Dao. With a slap, a copious amount of blood sputtered out of its ferocious maw. A sacred warrior of the Beastman Empire died just like that. After the mechanical black dragon swallowed the sacred warrior Tyrant Blade, its eyes swiveled and shimmered with ridicule. In a flash, a formidable life force erupted, and the wound caused by King Kong's attack healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Freak! You freak! Damn dragons, you freaks! Face deathly pale, King Kong's figure shook, and he fled frantically. Although his attack could injure the mechanical black dragon, but that was all. It couldn't seriously injure the mechanical black dragon with its freakish recovery ability. The mechanical black dragon flapped its wings, a gust of wind enveloped it, and turned into a gust of wind. It pounced on King Kong, bit down with its ferocious maw, and swallowed King Kong in one gulp. With a slap, the Beastman Empire's 3rd sacred warrior King Kong was bitten to pieces by the mechanical black dragon, and a copious amount of blood splashed about. Dragons are indeed formidable existences at the top of the food chain. Each of the Beastman Empire's 3 sacred warriors is a legend-ranked powerhouse. Unfortunately, in front of dragons, they are still somewhat vulnerable. If it wasn't for the low reproductive ability of dragons, then the Feisua Plain might have already become a plain dominated by dragons. Yang Feng mused as he watched the mechanical black dragon easily devour the 3 sacred warriors of the Beastman Empire. Each of the Beastman Empire's 3 sacred warriors was a peerless powerhouse. With Yang Feng's current strength, he could only choose to flee or else die. Yet the mechanical black dragon easily devoured the 3 sacred warriors of the Beastman Empire. The strength of dragons could be well imagined. Of course, this was also greatly related to the fact that the mechanical black dragon was infinitely close to the Starry Sky Warlock rank. Ordinary dragons definitely weren't as powerful as the mechanical black dragon. After the mechanical black dragon devoured the 3 sacred warriors, its soul suddenly throbbed, and an extremely terrifying life force erupted from its body. Its scales shattered inch by inch, and drops of red blood dripped down from its body. Yang Feng was slightly startled when he saw this. Is it going to evolve into a real ancient dragon? The greater part of the mechanical black dragon was manufactured by Yang Feng using the corpse of the ancient dragon Vedarnia. The ancient dragon Vedarnia was originally a terrifying existence comparable to the Starry Sky Warlock rank, and could fight with demigod rank powerhouses. However, it had been sealed for too long, and its strength had weakened to the Great Warlock rank. After the mechanical black dragon integrated with a high-grade soul stone, its evolution potential was boundless. Yang Feng didn't think that it would promote to the demigod rank so quickly. Yang Feng mused for a moment, then his figure shook and he disappeared. Not long after, a magic carpet flew over from the horizon. Yang Feng sat on the magic carpet, looked at the mechanical black dragon struggling in pain, and sank into contemplation. Massacre, blood energy, fear, these 3 divinities have the least effect on me. Blood energy has the least effect on me, so I'll give it to you. I hope you can go further. Yang Feng mused for a moment, then silently recited an incantation, operated a secret method, and touched his forehead with a finger. The divinity of blood energy in his spirit sea trembled slightly, moved slowly, and slowly flew out of his spirit sea. With a dignified look in his eyes, Yang Feng slowly pulled out the divinity of blood energy, then flicked his finger, and a golden radiance immediately dropped from the sky and entered the mechanical black dragon. When the divinity of blood energy entered the mechanical black dragon, its body trembled, and a copious amount of power converged with the divinity of blood energy, then broke through a certain limit and directly transformed into a terrifying Starry Sky Warlock rank divine life form. The so-called demigod referred to beings that had ignited their divine fire, yet still hadn't condensed their godhead. On the Feisua Plain, apart from dragons and some extremely powerful extraordinary life forms, other life forms had to rely on faith power to ignite their divine fire, in order to break through the limits of their bodies and become demigods, possessing terrifying strength beyond the ordinary, and their battle prowess comparable to that of the Zhangji Plains Starry Sky Warlocks. As for dragons, giants, ancient fiends, ancient devils, and some other innately powerful extraordinary life forms, even if they didn't gather faith power, they could still continue to evolve, possessing terrifying strength comparable to that of demigods, or even gods. At present, the mechanical black dragon was just a terrifying divine life form with demigod battle prowess, but it wasn't a true demigod of the Feisua Plain. Yang Feng looked at the mechanical black dragon with kindred fangs, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. It should be a vampire black dragon now. Interesting, I'm looking forward to seeing what you can evolve into in the future. Suddenly, the mechanical black dragon turned its eyes, locked on Yang Feng in the sky, and whispered, "Master, I want to have a name. Please bestow me a name." You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.